Road, West Yarmouth, Mass. Maybe I'll read the list in the future. Petition number 4798, that property's in a zoning district R25. It's a continued hearing from March 28 of 2019, and it's concerning a special permit request on the zoning bylaw 407.2.1 and a variance in zoning bylaw under 407.2 subparagraph 7 for a family-related apartment exceeding 800 square foot maximum requirement. There is a letter from the petitioner dated May 2, 2019, asking that after careful consideration, we are writing to request our petition 4798, special permit for a family-related apartment, be withdrawn without prejudice. And is anybody prepared to make a motion on that request?
Second.
Mr. Martin, you a second?
No, Mr. Needs.
Oh, Mr. Needs, thank you. Sorry, Mr. Needs.
I'm a ventriloquist.
Well, you do a darn fine job at it, let me tell you. Only he...
Dick is
Yeah.
I could do that.
So on that motion made by Mr. Igo, seconded by Mr. Needs, does the board care to have any discussion before moving along to a vote? And seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
That carries unanimously. That motion to withdraw without prejudice is therefore allowed. And today, as they say, is 5/8? 9. Well, also, I think we ought to mention that the Red Sox are now at 500 for anybody that cares about that.
Absolutely.
That should be a joyous day after the first 2 games of the season, right?
Absolutely.
And the Bruins won. We won't talk about the other green team in Boston, but that's okay. Let's move on to petition number 4803.
Yes.
Marie Karen, 797, somebody we've never ever heard from this board before. Property located at 797 Route 28 in South Yarmouth, Mass. That property is in a zoning district B2. Our applicant seeks modification of existing decision 3765, or in the alternative, the grant of a new special permit under use table 202.5. subsection L5 to expand office area of existing building. Before moving along to present yourself, please, everybody remember that we do need to speak into microphones if we're going to address anything on this meeting tonight, because everybody at home really wants to hear every word we say. And so with that, would you identify yourselves, please? Starting with you, Ms. Karen, always good to see you.
Hi, I'm Marie Karen.
And I'm Dan Ojala. I'm a land surveyor and civil engineer with Down Cape Engineering in Yarmouth Port, and helping Marie out with what should be a pretty straightforward matter for your discussion tonight and consideration.
That's again Don Ojala, right?
Dan Ojala, yeah.
Oh, Dan, okay,
Dan,
yeah. Oh.
yes.
Sorry, I wasn't writing fast enough, Mr. Ojala.
That's Don's brother.
It's his twin.
Emery's my twin, but nobody remembers.
evening, Dan.
He's
How
out
are
in
you?
Seattle. So this is, again, Marie Karen, Silver Cloud Towing. They run a nice little operation, help the police out with towing and so forth, and have good members of the community in good standing. And simply the desire to infill the right rear corner of their small wood frame structure. You may recall many years ago we did a metal building in the back to house some of the trucks. This is the office building in the front, and they find that they need just a little bit more elbow room. So we're squaring off a corner in the southeast side of the building. It's in an area that has kind of an existing patio-type fire pit area, so we're not really taking up any new pavement. The maneuvering area will remain the same as it is now. The petition, reason for the split on the petition was we had, as some of you may recall, a tiny little addition out in the front, and hindsight being 2020, we probably should have included this at that time, but Marie just didn't come into her head until later. So here we are. Either we would modify that special permit that allowed the small bump in the front, or if the board's pleasure would be to just grant a fresh special permit for the one in the back, since that other work was, pretty much completed and is all done. So that's, I'll try and keep it brief. If you have any questions, we'd be glad to answer them.
Well, thank you very much, Dan, for keeping it very succinct. Mr. Barron, any questions of our petitioner?
No, not at this time.
What a wonderful, wonderful meeting we're going to have tonight. Mr. Nicanello.
No questions, but a comment saying that it all looks great down there.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Heidel,
No questions.
with such eloquent people in front of us, I'm disappointed that we're not hearing questions. Mr. Martin?
Just one quick question. It looks like the proposed addition works into the existing paid parking area now, and there's enough turning room there and everything to access the garage is okay, and that's been, and doesn't interfere with fire access and so forth, I suspect, right?
Yeah.
Taking that into account.
It's within inches, like I say, of the existing brickwork that's there, so we're not
okay.
really losing any maneuvering room, and they're used to it. And, yeah, the building commissioner thought everything looked good.
Okay. Property looks good. Yep.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Neitz?
So this is, it's just squaring it off, or is there a porch there now, or is it just,
It's kind of like a patio area, fire pit type, yeah.
so it is an addition to the house?
No question, a little bit of a footprint addition.
I have some concern about lot coverage. Have you got numbers for that?
Yeah, you're allowed 70% lot coverage in this zone, and the lot coverage is in the upper right corner. Let me just,
That's still within the amount.
yeah, it's 51.7 up to 52.5. It's fairly liberal in the district, so looks like the lot coverage is okay. Building coverage is 25, we're going from 23.5 to 24.3, so still compliant. And, yeah, hopefully that'll be okay. Doesn't look like we'll be adding on much more in the future, you know.
I still, I didn't sit on this when it came through, but I always felt when I sat in traffic on 28 while they backed one of their trucks in there, that use might have been better suited to an industrial district than a commercial district, but it's there, and I do have some concerns about expanding its use further, but I think for the minimal existence, the minimal addition they're looking for shouldn't be any more hazard or congestion to the neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr. Neitz. You know, Ms. Karen, last time you were here, I think, and I sat on one of these petitions, I raised holy hell about the fact that I was impeded in my use of Route 28 frequently by tow trucks backing in and out of that location.
I have been as well, so.
And then that building, the old vacuum mart or whatever it was called across the street came into existence. And I'll tell you, I drive that Route 28 to and from work every business day and never am impeded anymore by trucks backing in and out. So I realize you probably spent an awful lot of money to take care of my complaint.
Thank you.
But I think everybody that drives Route 28 is appreciative, particularly in the summertime when we don't have to stop traffic by putting out cones or having fellas run out. So thank you for heeding that. We really appreciate it. Just my quick comment I'm going to make is that I think it enhances the aesthetic view of this property, which has always seemed a little old-timey to me in the sense that this was the covering of a sort of farmer's porch, is my memory. And this was going to be the location where your trucks would ticket in and out of when the first concept of it. And I'm assuming the squaring off is to enhance a little bit of business space inside this building.
Just to expand the office, yes.
What's the rest of the building used for? Is there any residential use in that building?
There is an apartment upstairs.
Upstairs?
Yep.
Oh, and that apartment continues today?
Yes.
All right. I personally think you're well below lot coverage, and I do like the aesthetic appeal, the new rendering at least we'll give to this building. So I'm
Thank
going
you.
to say that I'm at least initially in favor of it. Does anyone in our audience care to speak in favor of this petition? And if so, please come to the lectern and the microphone. Seeing none, does anyone care to speak in opposition to this petition? Seeing none, we now close it to public discussion and open it up to board discussion and deliberation, or public input, rather. Board discussion and deliberations. Mr. Neitz, your thoughts, if you'd be so kind.
I do have some concern, but not enough to warrant a negative vote, and I don't think apparently there's not too much interest in it from abutters or other citizens, so I don't think it's going to be an additional hazard or congestion to the neighborhood.
Okay. Mr. Martin?
Yeah, I concur with the same thing. It's a very small office addition, so it's not going to be any real change to what's going on there now, and the site is looking pretty good, and they've done a nice job across the street, so I'm quite comfortable with what's going on there now.
Thank you.
For those who might not have observed it, our building commissioner came up and acted as a policeman of the microphones for those at home that didn't see it. So thus, we're all kind of giggling and laughing about it. But it just goes to show that your job description is many-faceted. Thank you.
Keeps growing, yeah.
So, Mr. Igo, any comments?
I agree with both the other board members with their comments. I think it's a reasonable request. I don't think there's going to be any negative impact at all to the neighborhood of the surrounding zoning district. I think it's a reasonable request, and I think she probably does need the room in there, so.
Okay, I'm going to...
I plan on supporting it. I'd recommend the rest of the board do as well. I think there is going to be a positive vote on this.
You know, I'm reminded of something that Ms. Clark, the very attractive woman to my left, I hope that doesn't get me in trouble with PC.
What's that?
To my left, who has been my many-year friend, so I think I can say that. She reminded me when we started that though the right notices did go out to all of the proper abutters on this property, the actual application spoke to this property being located at Lot 35 and not Lot 33. If it were reversed, where the notices went out to the abutters at Lot 35, this being actually Lot 33, then we would have to adjourn the meeting. But this is a de minimis, in my opinion, a de minimis issue, particularly since all the concerned parties in terms of abutters have been properly noticed. Mr. Nicanello.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's wonderful that you have to add on. You've made a lot of improvements. That shows business is growing, hiring more people. It's good for the economy. Our business rate in Yarmouth is low, and I treasure every business that's out there. With respect to the process, Mr. Chairman, I think the modification to the previous petition is no longer valid because the previous petition on paragraph 7 says the no exterior alterations or residential building are proposed. So I would treat this as a special permit.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Mr. Barron.
Well, I had good reason to do a site visit, both yesterday and today, because I had a traffic accident on Tuesday, and my car was towed to this location.
Oh, that's a horrible
So you did a
reason
site
for a
visit while you
site
were there?
visit.
Yes, I mean, 2 for 1, but...
Does that mean you need to recuse yourself because you're in a business
Sorry.
relationship
Well,
with Ms. Karen?
I'm an alternate tonight, so I don't have a vote, but by observation, the addition makes sense because the office is a very tiny office, and a little bit more elbow room would help.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, so is anybody prepared to make a motion? And I do agree with Mr. Barron that we should consider this as a special permit, a new special permit grant. And on that, I would just chime in that, strike, let's see if we can't have a motion made and seconded before we chime in on anything.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the special permit as requested without any conditions.
And is there a second to that
I'll
motion
second that,
made by
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Igo? It's Mr. Nicanello.
Thank you, sir.
Boy, my wife is right that I need to improve my hearing aids that I just bought.
What's that?
So, So, I just want to say before we go to a vote on that I think that in this instance, the very small change to this location will not result in any undue hazard, nuisance, nor congestion. I do not believe it will substantially be a detriment to the existing or future character of the neighborhood or town. The traffic situation there has been largely corrected, and from my perspective, completely corrected. And I think that this will enhance the aesthetics of the building. On that motion made by Mr. Igo, seconded by Mr. Nicanello, to grant a special permit without conditions, does the board care to have any discussion before moving it along to a vote? And hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. That carries unanimously. Now, as you know, I'm sure, a decision will be drafted. 20 days must elapse after that decision is recorded with the town clerk's office. Once those 20 days have elapsed, the special permit is then considered as granted. However, you will need to record it at the Barnstable Registry of Deeds and return proof of recordation back to our Ms. Sandy Clark. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Thank you. Good luck. And thanks, Don.
Good job, Don. Thank you. I've always liked Dan very much. He brings good humor. Petition 4798 is a, petition 4792 is a continued matter from February 28 and March 28. I don't see counsel in the room.
I think they're on the hall.
Right outside.
Oh, he is? All right, let's give Mr. Alva a chance to come in before we go on with the announcement.
Come on down.
Right down at the table, if you would, Mr. Alva. Good evening. Always nice to see you.
Good to see you too, Mr. Chairman.
And so this is petition 4792, that of Leonard R. Marischal of 9 Pinewood Road, West Yarmouth, Mass. This property is located on, and being shown as lot 24.69.
What's that?
My understanding, map and lot 24.69. In any event, it's property in a zoning district R25, and again located at 9 Pinewood Road. Our applicant is seeking a special permit under zoning bylaw 407 to create a family-related apartment. Good evening, sir. Would you tell everybody at home your name?
Yes, Attorney Anthony Alva, representing the applicant in this case.
Go right ahead and tell
Marshall.
us about your petition, if you would.
There were two primary issues that were raised back in December of 2018. One of them is the basement. There was work done in the basement that was not permitted, and also upstairs, work that was not on file as having been permitted with the town, according to the letter from Mr. Brandolini dated December 19th. Significant development since I was here the first time before the board. The basement, all the improvements in the basement, my client, including any electrical work that may be down there, any plumbing work that may be down there, any previously unpermitted rooms that were walls, whatever, that were put down there and doors, all of that's going to be removed. And but we need to have a licensed contractors obtain the permits to do all of that type of work. The area is going to be designated for storage only, and so that's done. That will be done. So we're not looking to have any type of occupancy permit or any of that nature, anything going on down there. I've actually seen it since I met with Mr. Grillis about it, and it's clear there's nobody down there, downstairs. For the upstairs area, there was a list of items that we needed to complete in order for the application to be completed. For the work upstairs, for the in-law apartment area, Mr. Brandolini identified that back in December, as it looked like there might be 936 square feet area in excess of the 800 square feet area that would allow for the accessory apartment. This board, I found out a few days ago, had instructed my client to have a third-party measure upstairs, because he did submit a floor plan to it back on January 8th, but it didn't include a overall measurement. And that, my client didn't recall the board's instruction to have a third-party measure. Kindly, the building department offered to have one of your own employees go in. I think it was on Tuesday this week, maybe it was Monday. So I couldn't reach Mr. Marshall that afternoon. It was around 2 o'clock, 2:30. He knows to have he did his own measurements, because I had a listing from the building department of exactly what he had to do, list by list item before the meeting here today. And my client, he went up and measured it. Juan Marshall went up and measured it, but he measured it in inches. I didn't know he didn't measure in feet. And also, it's not acceptable anyway to the board because it wasn't done by a third party. So he is going to get a building contractor to go up there and do that to supplement what he originally filed here, with the Board of Health with the town back in January. And this is what he had just brought in on Monday to the town. But it doesn't show the detail here, and he knows that he needs to have a contractor actually do those measurements. So I think it's my understanding, and Mr. Brandolini's here, he's been very, very accessible and helpful. It's my understanding that for the application for the upstairs, all that is needed is and I'm sure he's going to give you more details on that in a couple of minutes, is just the third party to measure so we could get an official designation of what the square footage is. I should explain the house. You have the bottom floor, a top floor. They don't match in square footage because it's gambreled like this, so there's less area. Eyeballing it, it looks like there's about at least 2 feet, maybe 3 feet on each side, the entire length, which would bring it under, the upstairs under, or within the threshold of the bylaw, the maximum 800 square feet, so we don't know if we need to even seek any type of variance or special permit in that regard. I don't think that we do, but based upon the square footage that Mr. Brandolini was given by my client, I think the square footage is much, much lower than he expected. He didn't think that it would, when you do the multiply, divide by 12 to 494 inches by 147 inches, it's a lot less. So it doesn't seem credible to him, and I don't know if what it is, the actual measurements there, and we don't have that. So I apologize to the members of the board because my client knew that there were no further continuance would be given from today. But it seems that one of the biggest areas of the town concerned, the basement area, is not an issue since the work is going to be done to basically remove what isn't finished up with air, and the upstairs, all we need is the measurements. So with that, I don't have much more to contribute to that, except just to say that my client is working as hard as he can to get these things done. He is very, very busy. He's been designated, I have the power of attorney by his father, that's the father's residence, to do this work for him. His father's in his mid to late 70s, I understand. And, bless you. And he's busy, he knows he has to comply with what the town is looking for, so we're trying to do that to the best of our ability. Okay. If we can, I would, well, never mind, I'm ready to take questions from the board or input.
I think before we move on, I don't want to impose on Jim Brandolini, who I see here, and Jim is always very succinct in his comments anyway. Jim, you would be doing us a big favor if we could avoid having to read all of your correspondence, emails, and the like into the record, so that my voice isn't any more strained than it already is. Good evening, sir, and you are Jim Brandolini of the Yarmouth Zoning Board, Yarmouth Building Department, is that correct?
Yes. Good evening.
Welcome, sir, as always.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
What do you have to tell us?
It's been a while. It's been a while.
It's an unfortunate absence, we think.
As Attorney Alvarez indicated, he and I just spoke concerning basically 3 issues. The use of the basement, the use of the second floor, the dimensions of the second floor. Actually, I'm subcategorizing. It's 3 basic topics, but I'm categorizing. The second floor square footage is certainly an issue. And the other topic is where do the owners reside? Because this fiscal year, the assessors' records indicate that they have a Barnstable address. The 2 previous fiscal years, it indicated they had a Barnstable address, Pitcher's Lane. So that needs, in my opinion, needs to be resolved in some fashion, and I think perhaps Attorney Alva might be able to address that. Back in January, when we received the building permit application, I did not issue the permit because there were 6 outstanding building permit issues that were unresolved, 2 of which have been resolved. But there are 4 that remain. After having met with the petitioner on Monday, this past Monday, he and I discussed those issues again. And at that time, he decided that rather than so-called legitimizing the basement rooms, he was going to identify them as storage only. So I had him indicate that on the floor plan, sign it and initial it. But there are some additional things that need to take place. There are some removal issues that need to take place, and that would have to be done via a building permit and inspected accordingly. So without, I could provide you with historical data that goes back to the beginning of the construction, but I don't think that would be necessary at this point.
Well, I think that we have an issue that's before us, and we all know how the family-related apartment bylaw reads, and we certainly do need to have an owner occupying the premises,
Yes.
as there is a family-related member occupying the apartment. So there's a hurdle we certainly do have, but I don't think going back over the history of this entire home coming up to this date is going to be helpful. Does anybody on the board? If you want to hear it, we can hear it, but
I don't think it's
I
relevant.
think there are too many other issues involved.
Yeah.
that-
yeah, and so you said two of the issues on the 6th you referenced on your April 24 letter have been resolved?
That was February 24th.
I apologize.
That's
So
okay.
can we
Let
go
me
to your
just,
April 24 letter, and would you speak to that? You listed
Let me
6
just double-check
matters.
the date on that.
Sure.
March 20th,
Be happy
maybe?
to give it to you if you'd like.
March 20, maybe?
If it's anything to do with IBM securities, would you let me know, Dick?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Did you used to bring down?
That was January 18th.
Well, I'm looking at an April 24 correspondence from you. Would you like that letter?
Yes, I did. That, in a nutshell, reiterates the January 18th
Okay.
email.
If we can look at 1 through 6 there, just to
Sure.
help us move this along.
Sure.
Of 1 through 6, are any of those matters resolved by today?
1 and 2.
So on the 4/24/19. And that means 3 through 6 remain unresolved?
That's correct.
Okay. Did you have anything else you wanted to tell us at this point, but we'd ask you to stay by the mic?
Okay, not at this point.
All right. Mr. Neitz?
I think when the petitioner was here, I think before his attorney was hired, he mentioned that his father was out of the country, and that's why he was acting on his behalf under the power of attorney. I sensed at that meeting that that was not a temporary trip to
Wherever.
a vacation. It was a more family-related residence that he had outside of the United States. The owner occupation is a part of the bylaw that I think we have never varied from on any application for a family-related apartment. And that, in and of itself, is enough to turn it down. But added to the fact that the petitioner was too busy to address the other 4 items that we gave as conditions last time, and comes back with really no further information for us that would lead us to even consider this petition, I see no reason why we want to waste a lot of time on it, because our time is valuable, too.
Well, I certainly agree with that last comment, Mr.
Absolutely.
Neitz. Mr. Martin, did you want to chime in with anything before we move it along?
Excuse me, I guess I have the same concerns, and, I'm concerned that this house, somewhere along the way, because I remember it as a single-family home, and suddenly it legally became a duplex.
Attempt for a triplex.
Or a triplex even. And not having the square footage of upstairs, we don't even really know what's being requested there. And again, these other things that are missing to do this, and I would, again, concur with Dick's comment, too. We don't even know if the owner's going to be living here, so how can this be a accessory apartment? And, just just lots of issues that have not been fully dealt with to the point where I think we can make a reasonable decision.
Mr. Igo, any questions of either of the petitioner's representative or Mr. Brandolini?
First to Jim, and good evening, Jim.
Good evening.
On your 1 through 6, I see heat source insulation details, no framing details. Was this new construction that was sheetrock? Is that what's going on?
This was construction that was performed without benefit of permits.
So there was never any frame inspection, never any insulation inspection?
Correct. That's correct.
So if we were to, what would the building department's position be if we allowed the apartment? I mean, would you still have a problem with it as far as not complying with the building code? Or would you need to see that? Would you need to have them, what would be your position?
The permit application that was submitted, in a nutshell, said to legitimize basement use. And legitimizing it means obtaining a building permit, plumbing permit, electrical permit, having those appropriate inspections performed and approved. That may mean removal of some elements to make those observations.
Okay.
Once that was done, and also included with that application with the proposed, or in this case, existing uses of certain rooms in the basement. Just to expound on that issue, the discussion I had with the petitioner on this past Monday, I refreshed his memory as to what was outstanding, one of which rooms, habitable rooms, are required to be conditioned, heated. And the petitioner kept emphasizing, I don't want to heat it, it's not heated, I don't intend to heat it, doesn't need to be heated. Well, in fact, it does need to be heated. That triggers insulation issues, energy conservation issues. So after having discussed that a little further, the petitioner decided to re-identify the rooms as storage only in the basement. Now, that doesn't negate the need for building permits, a building permit, plumbing permit, and electrical permit to remove certain elements.
Now, if we go upstairs to the second floor unit, is that new construction too? And would that need the same type of inspections, and has that been sheetrocked over?
It may. It may be the same scenario.
Okay.
What causes you to say may?
When I say may, it depends on the nature of the structure. First question from a building code standpoint, was there construction that changed the framing of the second floor? And I don't know that yet.
Have you had the opportunity to look up there at all?
I haven't. I've reached out a few times to get out there, but it just wasn't never arranged.
All right.
And when I say may, it also boils down to the wiring inspector and the plumbing inspector.
Exactly.
And I can't speak for them. But based on the historical records, and I think I need to touch on this a little bit. The house was constructed, excuse me, 1977 as a single family with 2 bedrooms. And then the assessors reflects in 1988 that, but that was under the previous ownership, that the second floor was finished in some fashion. Back in 2003 or 4, there was a proposed set of stairs, and without getting into that scenario, that's another element issue here. Eventually I asked for a floor plan of the second floor because I was interested in the use at that time. That floor plan did not depict a kitchen. In 2000, based on the assessor's records, sometime in 2004 or 5, the assessor's records reflected a kitchen. So that sort of morphed into more than it was.
Well, the assessors can assess, but that doesn't mean there's a building permit.
Correct. Correct. So I'm basing my comments on their observation, if you will.
If the petitioner went out and had, say, a new set of drawings made that showed everything where it is today, and I know that it's sheet rock and everything, and I can't speak for the wiring or the plumbing, because that's obviously covered, do you feel you might be able to okay a building permit on this, or is this a situation where you don't think?
As long as the board approved the accessory apartment,
Okay.
and obviously would have to meet the prescriptive criteria, a maximum of 800 square feet, and the window sizes, insulation, it would be like applying for a permit from scratch.
Okay.
We'd have to look at the energy conservation issues, heat source up there, and I suspect it is heated because it's been occupied. But I don't know for certain. I don't know what the source is. I don't know what the volume is.
And could I just quickly ask Attorney Alva a question on that? Do you know if your client would be willing to get someone to draw those plans up properly so that the building department can have all
He
those?
is. And this it was submitted, I don't know if this was done by a licensed individual or not. I don't know.
That plan was completely unsatisfactory to us the last time, is my
Okay.
memory, because it didn't show the square footage.
Right, and that's
We're not
one
going
thing
to
is missing.
calculate it for them.
That makes sense. But yes, and if I could, because it sounds terrible about the basement, my client was pretty clear to me when it came to the basement. That's, the heat, there's no heat in the basement.
I'm really only talking about the second
Upstairs.
floor, and I think when we look at this, I think we're pretty much of the opinion that the basement was a non-starter, I think.
Right.
If my
Am
memory
I
serves me, but-
misunderstanding? Didn't you represent that he's prepared to demolish the basement?
He's prepared to do what it takes to make it necessary so that it conforms as a storage area.
Okay.
That's correct. And also, I've just, one other item, Mr. Brandolini did mention that upstairs was done pre the current owner. And if I could have a latitude of the chairman, at some point in time, would like to address the occupancy issue.
But I'm just talking about in terms of trying to move this ball forward, and I don't know how the other board members feel, but I'm just thinking here that if he were to get the proper plans that satisfy the building department, that we, as a board, could look down and understand, and certainly if they met the criteria, square footage and whatnot, he'd be willing to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And just on the question of the ownership of the house, do you have proof that this,
The occupancy, yeah.
occupancy of the house, not the ownership? Do you have some proof to rebut what we're
Tonight,
hearing
I
here?
don't.
Okay.
I do have a power of attorney,
Right.
but my client has indicated to me that's where his father resides, and that the addresses that were used, because it was mentioned before, basically his father just delegated, just take care of it for me, and that's why you might have discrepancies. You do have discrepancies in the addresses. Though, how could I do it? If we get the latitude, if the board wants to have him here, I can have him here, or if a written affidavit by him that this is my residence. It's my understanding that this is, for all intent and purposes, it is where he lives, and that he was out of state for a while.
Can I just chime in for
A
a
little
minute?
too late. I think.
Can I chime in for a minute?
This is the third meeting we've had
Yeah,
on this.
I think, and this isn't reflection on you, Mr. Alva, please know that.
I understand. Yeah.
But, it's very disappointing to me that now this has taken up my time over three courses, three separate meetings. And it's very disappointing to me, though I know Mr. Brandolini loves to come here, that we have to pay him. This town of Yarmouth has to pay him to be here tonight so that he can pursue what I think is foolishness and trying to tell a petitioner what he needs to do. With due respect, again, to you, not necessarily to your client, I say that it's not this board's obligation to tell a petitioner what to do. It's the petitioner's. And the ducks, and the eggs aren't in the basket yet for us to even consider the merits and substance of this petition. When there is satisfactory inspection and approval of a building permit, which precedes a request for a family-related apartment, that meets the criteria in terms of its dimensions, because we don't deviate from that. We have, in but one instance I can remember of all the years I've been on this board, one, and we never deviate from owner-occupied, so just so you know.
Understood.
And you know, I don't want to, we're not going to start with this one, that's for sure.
That's for sure.
So my suggestion would be that, and it may not be very warmly received by particularly this end of the board, that this petition be withdrawn, a request be made that this petition be withdrawn without prejudice. Once all of those things are worked out with Mr. Brandolini and the building department, we welcome you back, because actually we're very strong proponents of accessory-related apartments. So we'd like to see this developed into that, provided it's done legally. So would that be something you could entertain, so we could move this along tonight? Or
Yes.
something you'd like to request?
Yes, I would, I would, because my client's made it clear to me, he wants to get the work done. He just needs, he will get that work done.
So can I consider that a request to allow the withdrawal of this without prejudice?
Yes,
All
Mr.
right.
Chairman.
And so on that request, does anybody care to make a motion in consideration of accepting it?
I'd like to make a motion that we allow the petitioner to withdraw his petition without prejudice.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
And does the board care to have any discussion about it before proceeding? Because I just want to say, I'm a little tired of this petition.
Well, that's basically what I was going to say, Mr. Chairman. I think we're all a little tired of it, because we don't seem to advance the ball an inch any time that we continue it.
Yeah.
So I'm not inclined to continue it, and I don't think I'm even inclined to vote to allow it to be withdrawn without prejudice, because I've got prejudice. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Well then, on a show of hands, all those, strike, does anybody else want to have discussion on the motion before proceeding to a vote? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion made by Mr. Igo, seconded by Mr. Igo, seconded by Mr. Martin, to allow the withdrawal of this petition without prejudice, please indicate by raising your hand. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Those opposed, Mr. Nietzsche, you're opposed. 4 to 1. That then carries, sir.
All right.
We'll look forward to seeing this petition when your petition has it properly presented, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And again, no reflection on you. You did a great job for losing cause.
Well, my client's been very clear. He wants to comply. He understands. If he didn't before, he understands now what we've got to do.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brandolini.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Good to see you, Jim.
I have to say, I feel a little rusty after all these years.
Well, then hang around. We'd like your input on the next one, too, if you care to give it.
We have wine and cheese at 10.
All right, so we have two petitions related. They are petitions 4801, 4802. The petition is in both instances of Cobia Enterprises LLC. The petitions relate to the same parcel of property, though with different street addresses. They are 473, 479, a portion of 487, and then the remainder of 487 Station Avenue. Those properties are all located on zoning maps and in our zoning district B1, also within the APD, or Aquifer Protection District, and the Road Overlay District. Does that still exist?
Yep.
Wow. The applicant is seeking special permits and variances to develop the land at the above addresses for use as a Shell fuel service station and convenience store with co-branded or co-brand businesses. Relief is requested under and from, respectively, sections 202.5, footnote J, 301.4.1, 301.4.10, 301.8, 301.9, 303. For relief from concerns over the APD, and various dimensional setback and design parking, drive-through landscape, lighting, and sign provisions per submitted plans and materials. I just wanted to make sure, I apologize for the pause there, but I wanted to make sure we addressed all relief, and I think that I overlooked one, and that would be for variance relief under 203.5 and 301.4.1, as necessary to divide off 7,300 plus or minus square feet of land at the rear of the lot, that being lot 487. The proposal will not create any new conformities or impact the existing site development. Have I covered everything there?
I think you did.
Well, good evening, Mr.
Included the kitchen sink just for fun.
Is there a kitchen sink here?
Oh, it's in there. You read it somewhere.
Why don't you identify yourselves first, please?
Good evening. For the record, my name is Andrew Singer. I'm an attorney in Dennisport here on behalf of the applicant. With me at the table is Andrew Delicarpini, who is the owner of Colbia Enterprises, LLC. Understand from the legal ad you just, or ads that you just read, Mr. Chairman, so both hearings are open. And I think that's important because as we're talking over tonight and whenever they're kind of interrelated.
Seem a little more efficient to open them at the same time.
Absolutely. No, we appreciate that. And on each, you guys have a significant amount of materials that we have given you. And what I propose to do tonight, or what we propose to do tonight, is we have a series of speakers for you after my introduction. We're going to describe, we want to introduce, describe, and explain this proposal that we feel is very innovative, and we hope at the end of the public hearing process you'll feel that way as well. After my introduction, Mr. Delicarpini is going to speak briefly about the applicant itself. I'm going to then discuss the summary of reasoning that I submitted regarding, in particular, the proposal for the main property, which is right here on the plan that's up on the easel. And then ultimately, Eric Simpson, who is the environmental manager for the applicant, in-house manager, will be speaking about the significant environmental benefits and improvements of the proposal. Also with us tonight, we have Al McCallie from AUB Engineering, Dan Ojala, or Don Ojala, from Down Cape. We also have Bob Nagy from VHB and several other members from Colbia Enterprises. The proposal, in and of itself, is pretty straightforward. It's to construct a gas station with a Seasons Corner convenience store market and co-brand business on this property. This is the Cape Cod Rail Trail. That's the new bridge over. Just for orientation, this is the Stop and Shop property. This is CVS, Wendy's, and this is the existing Shell station that's here. This is the existing Sunoco station. This is Station Avenue, and this is Old Townhouse Road. So the proposal is to do new construction on this site. It is currently a vacant wooded site composed of, or we're composing it of several different parcels that we're putting together. And part of it is, this is the Today Real Estate piece. And the request on the second application is that the Today piece comes down here and actually swings around, and there's a dog leg right back here. So it's the back part of this property in white here, which is actually currently belongs to the Today Real Estate piece, which you guys have looked at twice over the years for different relief. So the second application is carving off that little piece, as was read, it's about 7,300 square feet. And we can discuss that, but I think obviously the principal focus of what you're looking at, because it's, if you don't like that, the other one's kind of moot, is the proposal for the gas station. And what is integral, and you'll be hearing this several times from different ones of us as we speak, because it is so important, is that the proposal to develop this site, in and of itself, if we were here to develop that site by itself, we probably wouldn't be here with the relief we've asked for. But come down the street. This is the existing Shell station. This is the existing Sunoco station. Integral to this application is closing the fuel service operations at both those sites, decommissioning them, and deed restricting those properties from future fuel service use. And that is key, because all of this land, this entire area on there, is not only in the B1 commercial zoning district, but it's also in the Aquifer Protection District. So we are looking at an area where water quality is extra important. The zoning bylaw The purpose of the zoning bylaw is to promote the health, safety, convenience, and welfare of the inhabitants of Yarmouth. The objective of Section 406 of the bylaw, which is the APD provisions, is to protect the public drinking water supply in Yarmouth from the effects of high-density land development and from potentially hazardous materials associated with specific land uses. What our job is to discuss, share, and explain to you is our opinion that the proposed development of the site plus the redevelopment of the other properties, we believe should be reviewed from the two distinct viewpoints I just mentioned, the purposes of the zoning bylaw in general, the purpose of the Section 406 language. And when you look at all that, we submit that the proposal will result in the environment being strengthened, risk to the environment and water quality being reduced, and the public water supply being best protected. As two threshold matters, environmental peer review was conducted of this proposal, the entire proposal, involving all of everything that's on the map there. That was conducted by a third party. It was reviewed by the town's water consultant. It's been reviewed by the Board of Health. And you have
Located within our packet, sir.
Yes, and you have the peer review from the town, you have the peer review from the peer reviewer, you have the report from the town's water consultant, you have a detailed multi-page letter from the Board of Health discussing their review and approval of the concept. So that's all in your files. The second threshold matter is peer review of the traffic. Traffic study was done. The transportation staff from the Cape Cod Commission is currently undergoing a peer review of that. While I mentioned that Mr. Nagy is here tonight from VHB, the lead engineer could unfortunately not be here tonight because of a death earlier in this week, and he's attending to that. As such, and I spoke with the town planner a couple days ago regarding this, at the end of tonight, once we've presented all of our information, you've had a chance to weigh in with your initial questions and comments back and forth. The public, through letters or in the audience, has weighed in. We're going to ask you to continue us to June 13th. In the interim, a couple things are going to happen. The additional traffic analysis that the Cape Cod Commission transportation staff have requested will be completed. And on June 13th, both the lead traffic engineer and Cape Cod Commission transportation staff will be here. We've checked the schedules with both individuals, so we're going to be able to have that information. The Cape Cod Commission, it's in your file. They submitted a letter suggesting some additional information be provided. And so that will all be ready by June 13th. We will also, is my hope, between now and June 13th, be able to take any of the questions and comments that we've heard from you tonight and get you answers. So we may not be able to answer everything tonight. We probably won't be able to. But we will be able to do that by June 13th.
Unfortunately, I'm just told by one of the people that is sitting on the board this evening, one of our regular members, Mr. Igo, he's not going to be available the 13th, so.
Is everyone available on June 27th?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm always available, it seems. Unless I'm away on
All right.
another country.
Well, we can discuss dates at the end. We might be so compelling that Mr. Igo might change his plans and decide to be here on the 13th.
I don't think so.
Well, you know, we'll discuss that in a little while. Finally, for my introduction, I'd like to start off by stating something that I think is pretty obvious. We've asked for a number of variances. We've asked for a lot more variances than applicants usually do before you. Variances are hard to get. I've been before you for 20-odd years, or more than 20-odd years. I know that. You know this. What does that mean? We have to demonstrate the criteria for the variances to you. You need to make findings on them. At the end of the day, I understand, we understand, you understand, that if you don't like the project, it's going to be relatively easy for you guys to say no. We're asking for a lot of variance relief. However, our goal, and what we ask you to weigh as you hear everything we're going to provide tonight, during the interim at the continued hearing, is that we sincerely believe that this is a unique, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to tackle several issues in the APD and the B1 zoning district.
But may I just interrupt just for a second, just so we know how this is going to proceed tonight? Sure. Is everybody you're anticipating calling, anticipating coming back at whatever date we are available to you?
Yes.
Because it may be that we want to think about all of your presentation tonight and then thoughtful questions to present at our next meeting, as opposed to making this a 4-hour roundabout this evening, only to
fine.
do the same thing on June 27, if that's night.
Yes, no, we will be here, and the additional people who couldn't be here tonight will be here as well.
But everybody will be available for questionings at that next meeting. Is that fair to say?
I'm getting a lot of nodding heads.
Good.
Mr.
Amazing.
Chairman?
It's amazing what contracts will do, right?
Mr. Chairman, a point.
Go ahead, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, just a point of order. So you're saying the board wouldn't be asking questions at this?
I defer entirely to board members.
Okay.
I'm just thinking that if
I'm
people
just saying,
wanted
because
to reserve them
I
until
think
they had
there's
heard
quite a bit
everything.
of questions and comments that the board might have that they need to take into account for coming with their finals next month. So I think that they may want to hear that.
Sure.
Well,
No,
we
I'm
welcome
think-
any questions tonight. We also, though, to your point, if you want to consider things and have other questions when we come back, that's fine, too.
Good.
I mean, that's part of the process. Yeah.
Second bite at the apple.
Yeah. Now, hopefully, we're only going to get those thoughtful questions and not the unthoughtful ones, but, we'll see where
That's what
everything
we're
goes.
trying to avoid.
There's some butters here, Mr. Chairman? Is there a butters here tonight?
Do I hear
Are there butters here tonight?
It
Are
could
there
be.
abutters here tonight? We'll hear from all of you before you leave, I promise you that.
Oh, yes, that was our hope as well, because we've reached out to a number of abutters, but we welcome reaching out again
Yeah,
as
no,
well.
I'm only talking about your people you're presenting. If somebody has an agenda that they can't be here, I just want to know it now, that's all.
Yep.
I
And you
apologize, please go on.
Well, that's okay. You kind of preempted what I was going to say, because what I have written here, so I'll say it even though you hit it, was if you want more detail on the variance requests, if you want more case law research, if you want more questions answered, if you want more of anything, you'll let us know, whether it's tonight, whether it's the next meeting, and our job is going to be to give that to you. We do think that this project's going to improve water quality, it's going to protect our sole source aquifer, and it's going to enhance the business operations. We think it is just a really exciting, intricate proposal. And so we look forward to being here with you this evening to start answering those questions. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Delicarpini.
Well,
thank
thank you.
you.
Go ahead, sir. Yeah.
Members of the board, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you guys giving us the time to look at the project. My name is Andrew Delicarpini. Andrew said I'm the owner. I'm one of the owners of the company. My father-in-law started it 60-something years ago. I joined 26-something years ago when there was only 2 stations in the business, and over time we've grown it to over 100. So we've done a tremendous job in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire, and continue to grow. We have about 60 that we operate ourselves. 34 have been branded seasons. As if you guys sell Dennis, we just completed that one last year. You might have an idea of what that looks like. So it's a family business. The location that we're proposing to build is a location that we will be running. We won't turn it over to somebody else. It'll be my staff that'll be there. It'll be my marketing people, my managers, and it'll be my name on the door. So if there's an issue, if there's a problem, whatever the case is, it'll be coming to me. Nobody else has that Seasons brand. In Rhode Island, we have almost every Shell station except for 3. Mass, we've only been in the state for about 15 years, so we really haven't had time to really develop it that much. But in Mass, we have about 60 locations. So we continue to grow. We'd love the opportunity to have a second Seasons on the Cape. It's really exciting to me. When this all came to me, and even prior to this meeting this evening, I mentioned to Andrew that, I would never even come in front of the board and ask for something like this in an aquifer area on the Cape unless I thought the project was something that was really feasible and would benefit the town. And looking at this, because we're able to take those other 2 facilities out of commission and the improvements with the technology and really to the point where I'll have my staff running it, where we have environmental people, we have consultants, we have auditors that go in and do cigarette stings. I mean, we try to cover everything. Over 26 years, I've seen a lot of things that work, and I've seen a lot of things that haven't worked. My position, I've been honored enough to be, I'm the chairman of the National Council for Shell Wholesalers, so I represent 14,000 locations throughout the country, and I wouldn't have gotten that position if I didn't do it right, our company didn't do it right. We continuously win awards from Shell Oil for our image. The brand, the Seasons brand, is something my wife and I developed. We're very proud of it. We think it really fits in, the name we came up with, and we really wanted something that we owned just in the New England market. And I could go on for for hours about it, but for sake of time consciousness, as you mentioned at the beginning, I'll limit my comments, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions. But I really think this would be a win-win for everyone. So
Thank you very much. Thank you. And who else do you intend to call?
Well, I'm going to present now on the summaries of reasoning for the legal arguments and discussions, and then we'll have Mr. Simpson come up. This project's been in play for a while. We have met and been working closely with officials from the town. We've met with various departments on a number of occasions, building department, health department, the hazardous waste inspector. We have completed both design review and site plan review for the project. As I mentioned, we've had the peer reviews, on the environmental peer reviews that have been completed up until now. And the Board of Health has recommended approval of the proposal. You do have that letter, as I mentioned, from Carl Lawson in your file. Ultimately, there'll be one other approval that's going to be required if you all approve as well. We will have to go to the Planning Board for the approval of carving off that little piece of land and then issuance of the fuel storage permit from the selectmen. So you are a cog in the long process. We've completed 3 of the steps, and these steps now continue with you as well. The main environmental improvements that you'll see, and this is probably the most important part of the entire petition before you, is that by closing permanently those 2 older fuel stations, which have an average age of 40 years, and they're located within a quarter mile, you know right where they are. You've probably bought gas as I have and been to both of them. It's going to be replaced with this one state-of-the-art facility. There is going to be a significant net reduction of 16,000 gallons of fuel storage in the APD. There are going to be the removal of 7 underground tanks, 6 dispensers, and 56,000 gallons of current storage that's underground, and then replaced with 2 underground tanks, 6 dispensers, and 40,000 gallons of underground storage. So there's going to be a net reduction of underground fuel service tanks of 5, same number of dispensers, but a significant 16,000 gallon reduction in fuel service. The 2 older stations will be removed, as I mentioned, and the new station, as you will hear, will have automatic and continuous leak detection systems and double-walled underground storage tanks, double-wall piping complete with probes, sensors, and alarms. Those don't exist today. You know, the other sites are just much, much older. Those sites will be deed restricted. There's going to be an estimated reduction of 45 to 50 linear feet of underground fuel piping when the aging piping at the 2 sites is replaced with newer, higher standard piping. If you want show and tell tonight, the environmental manager actually has a piece of pipe in his bag. We weren't going to take that out unless you really wanted to see it, though. In addition, the new site will have a safer double-wall tank system with leak detection using brine in the interstitial space. There is also right now the tanks at the existing sites are a mix of single and double wall tanks, all, as we said, you know, the average age of 40 years, or approaching 40 years. Those will be removed. In addition, and we worked closely with the health department on this as well, it was discovered that at the existing Shell site, and the Sunoco site, there are some additional underground tanks, both for heating oil and for waste oil. And all those underground tanks are also being removed. Those are being replaced above ground with newer modern tanks, but you have to have those for the businesses. So heating oil and waste oil tanks there will remain, but they'll be removed from underground. So in effect, you have 10 underground tanks, old underground tanks in the APD being removed and replaced with 2. And that is, as we believe, just a very significant benefit in and of itself. The peer review that you have, and again, to the chair's point earlier, you may not have had a chance to review everything in detail yet, so we're going to hit on some of it, and you can certainly be reading it again during the ultimate continuance. The peer review notes that there will be a net benefit to the town. The town's water consultant agreed that the risk to the aquifer is less than current conditions. She recommended 4 conditions on the proposal, and we accept those, and it's in our summary. We've put them in writing, and we are fine with those. just add another little level of complexity to something that's already complex. Under the septic regulations, we're working with the town on seeking and approving a nitrogen aggregation plan. The reason for that is that although this site is bigger than the other two sites probably put together, it's still not big enough when you're looking in the APD for nitrogen reduction. And so under state and town law, you're entitled to seek permission to do what's called a nitrogen aggregation plan. And what it is you find open space in the same aquifer that's available, and you put a deed restriction on that, and that is treated as what the state calls credit land. So that's crediting you nitrogen that you can then use on the more appropriately developed facility land that they call it. So this is our facility land, which is the commercially zoned, commercially used piece of land, and there'll be land elsewhere in the aquifer district, in the zone 2, that would be protected. That process requires Board of Health approval. We are also working with the town on the new disposition of town-owned real property on obtaining through a public auction process that land. I mention all of this for this reason. There are so many different levels of approval that are required that each one of them's vital. So if any one of them fails, you guys could ultimately, and we hope you do, approve this project. If one of the later steps doesn't get approved, the project doesn't go forward. If you say no, all the others could get approved, and the project wouldn't go forward. So everything here is tied together. So that brings us, with all that complexity and promise, to the zoning bylaw and to the requirements for the special permits and the variances. Because this is complex, what we need for uses and the relief needed is also complex. Some of the uses we're requesting are permitted by right. In the B1 zone, the H3 food store use and the H10 eating and drinking establishment use are permitted by right. In the APD, the H3 food service use is permitted by right. What requires a special permit for use? The H6 motor vehicle fuel service needs a special permit in the B1 zoning district. There's no service proposed, but that's how the zoning bylaw defines it. And the H10 eating and drinking establishment needs a special permit in the APD. What needs a variance? One part of it needs a variance. It's obviously a very important part. H6, motor vehicle fuel. That requires a variance in the APD. So as you're looking at this project, it's one overall business use. And again, as Mr. Delacarpini mentioned, if you've been to South Dennis, it's the same type of operation, minus the car wash that they have in Dennis. The building is proposed to be the same. The layouts are a bit different, but the type of business is the same. So for the special permit,
They don't have to drive up there. They don't have to drive up.
okay, to the second thing they heard Mr. Neese say, we don't have a drive-up in Dennis. Yes, that is correct. There's no drive-up in Dennis. There is a car wash. I appreciate that. There is a drive-up here and no car wash here.
Okay, well, you keep going with your presentation. Then
that was good. I forgot that, so I appreciate that.
Oh, that's fine.
The board is entitled to grant the special permits for those aspects that need a special permit if you find that the development will not create any undue nuisance, hazard, or congestion, and that there's no substantial harm to the established or future character of the neighborhood or the town. As I mentioned before, the purpose of the APD is to protect the public drinking water supply in Yarmouth. And you have a bunch of other requirements under sections 406.53 and 406.55 of the zoning bylaw. We respectfully submit that the proposal, including the decommissioning of the existing Shell and Sunoco stations, will comply with all of the special permit criteria, that there will not create any undue nuisance, hazard, or congestion. It will result in a significant decrease in threat of harm to the public drinking water supply, and will thus result in a substantial benefit and improvement to the neighborhood, the town, and the environment, because you are losing the two existing stations. The new station will have the significant reduction of underground fuel storage. The proposal has been designed is intended to complement the B1 zoning district along Station Avenue. The Design Review Committee and the Site Plan Review Committee have reviewed the proposal. The Design Review Committee voted 3-0 in favor of finding that the proposed design of the building, canopy, and development are appropriate for the site and use and satisfy the reviewed design guidelines. The traffic study, we believe, as far as it has gone, demonstrates that the proposal will have available and safe stopping and intersection sight distances, and will have only minor impacts on local traffic operations. Now, questions have been raised by the Cape Cod Commission peer review, and we are addressing those. So we will have more for you on that. An extensive landscaping package has been proposed, including additional vegetative screening of the fenced dumpster from the adjacent property to the north. I should say that while we have these plans up here, we have all of the plans on boards. You have them in front of you. If there's anything you want to see on the board or have questions about at any time tonight, please ask, and we will address those. Site lighting will be downlit and appropriate for the Station Ave commercial zone. Building and lot coverage will be conforming. All stormwater runoff will be contained and infiltrated on site, and there'll be no negative impact to drainage, septic flow, or stormwater. As I mentioned, we have reached out to the neighbors, those next to and across the street, and I do understand that there are a couple, at least, who have raised some questions, and we will continue to attempt to work with them. I know one of them is here, at least one of them is here this evening, and we will hear from him, and we look forward to talking with him as well. We believe that the development of the property in conjunction with the other off-site work will improve and enhance the economic viability of the entire commercial zone and be an asset to the character of the neighborhood and the town. As for the variance relief for what is being requested, the criteria are, we have to show, obviously, and demonstrate that there will be a substantial financial or practical hardship to the petitioner, that the hardship is owing to circumstances relating to the soil condition, shape, or topography of the land or structures, and especially affecting them, and that desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying the bylaw. We have requests there for you for dimensional variances as well as use variances, and so we will be discussing those. As for the use variance, it is for the motor fuel and the APD. As for the dimensional variances, the building itself will comply with all setbacks. The canopy, however, will not. And there will also be parking in front of the building, as you clearly can see on the plan. So that is some of the relief that's needed. You have reviewed similar requests for parking in front of the building along Station Avenue. This has arisen traditionally before you, and I've done some of them with you, because the front setback is 75 feet generally, and at the same time, parking cannot be in front of the building. When you push the buildings back to 75 feet, there is almost no properties here where you can have parking behind or only to park to the sides of behind the building. And that's why, frankly, if you look at this entire zone, I think you will find parking in front of all but one building on this stretch of road. Maybe a couple, but there's only one that jumps to mind. Most of them have parking in front.
Which one?
The one I'm thinking about is the neighbor who's here is the medical office on the other side of Today Real Estate. The parking for that is to the side and rear. It's landscaped in front. But today, the property where the second application does have parking in front, by way of variance. And if you think most of the other properties, as I run through them, I think that is the way they are. The other dimensional variances we're asking for, and that we're asking the board to consider as we discuss it, and you'll have questions tonight or whenever, and we'll deal with that, our curb cut width. Center line of the southerly driveway is less than 250 feet from the northerly driveway. So what was done as part of site plan review is the northerly driveway here was requested to be lined up with the existing curb cut for the Stop and Shop Plaza across the street. And then in order to have the fuel service trucks be able to cycle through the property, you have the second driveway here. Well, those can't be 250 feet apart. So that is, and we can discuss that more, but that is one of the requests for a variance. In addition, some of the in-lot trees and plant species, there is a front buffer tree that was not proposed in this general area because of there's a drainage area and some wires. I think there's a guy wire that comes off a pole, so there was one tree that was not proposed. Again, we can discuss that with you. Photometrics, we're not sure if relief is needed. It might be. We did submit all that information. There was some ambiguity there, so we did include it in the application. The drive-through stacking lane, we're asking for some consideration on that. And then there were a number of sign relief that we have asked, with detailed plans that you have before you for that. As you conduct your review tonight and at the continued hearing, we respectfully submit that the variance criteria are met in this proposal. A literal enforcement of the bylaw will effectively prohibit the environmental upgrade to the APD and the business upgrade to the commercial zone that will be accomplished with this proposal. Most of the zoning bylaw provisions are met, but not all. There is no practical way to build a modern gas station convenience store business in this zoning district and meet all of the requirements, all of the conflicting, competing requirements that we've mentioned.
All of whose requirements?
The zoning requirements, and the health requirements, and the setback requirements, and everything for the relief we've requested. And even with this larger lot, where we're combining 3 different pieces into this piece, relief is still needed. However, again, I ask you to consider as you're going through all of this, the reason we're asking is because of the significant environmental improvements to the overall district. That is as Ms. Delacapini mentioned, if this was just this property, we wouldn't be here, and it would be a very different review. What we're seeking is to be more global and to look at this as the area itself. And so that is where we believe that the variance criteria are satisfied. We submit that not achieving all of these environmental and other improvements to the zones would not only be a substantial financial and practical hardship to the applicant and the property owner, but also to the neighborhood and the town and the environment. And I think the environment is a very critical piece here. And so we have proposed, and it is set forth in the bylaw, the hardships are directly related to soil conditions and topography, which are the water-sensitive formations of the APD. The shape of the land and structures, including those of the other gas station sites, when you look at those, because the existing Shell station is actually owned by the applicant. And they have looked, is there a way to reasonably redevelop this site? It's a rectangular site. It's pretty straightforward. Doesn't work. It's just not big enough there. And so that site exists. It exists as it is. It'll continue to exist as it is. What this proposal allows in the same zone, because we're less than a quarter mile apart, is to reap these benefits and allow these other sites to ultimately be redeveloped to more conforming uses that won't have the hazardous materials that they have today. It's another benefit we submit and is another unique characteristic and piece of this proposal. Just briefly, since we have opened the other hearing, discussing the other application, the other property has variances for parking in front of the building. And when it was constructed, there was a need for some variances. The stairwell and a piece of the stairwell and something jutting on the west side of the building encroached into the setback.
Bulkhead.
The bulkhead, thank you. The proposal we're asking for will impact none of that. So all of the relief that was previously granted for that site, setbacks, variances for parking in the front, not impacted. The variances for the bulkhead and the stairs, they're not impacted because the piece of land that we'd be taking from them is this piece in the back, whereas all the relief was for everything over here. So on that parcel, even when you cut off the 7,300 square feet, the building coverage will remain conforming. The septic system will remain conforming. The setbacks will remain the same. The parking will remain the same. The access will remain the same. Basically, everything that this board looked at on that property remains the same. So we submit that that meets approval and merits approval, for that particular application as well. I've spoken for a while now. I think what makes sense, if we could bring Mr. Simpson up, we could talk a little bit more about the environmental, and then if you have initial questions, the engineer and everyone, we can go over the plans. This is the plan we wanted to show you for the overall layout. If you have questions on the detail plans, we have those as well. So with that, turn to Mr. Simpson.
Questions for me?
Okay, do you have any questions for Mr. Delacapini
No,
to
no,
start with? No. Okay, we're all here, so we can all come back up.
Right now?
Right now, no, I can wait.
So, thank you.
Can you identify yourself, sir, please?
Certainly. Good evening. My name is Eric Simpson. I am a professional geologist and a licensed site professional. I'm the environmental manager for Colbia Seasons Corner Market. And thanks for hearing me, and it's a pleasure being here. Wanted to talk.
It's just wonderful having you here.
Isn't it? I feel, it's a good day. It was sunny out today, so you kind of.
Sure.
So I wanted to basically speak to you more in depth about the Aquifer Protection District and what the specific benefits are of this project. I've been doing this line of work for about 25 years, and it's very infrequent in terms of never that you see a situation where you get the opportunity to close down and renovate 2 older gas stations and build a new one. Certainly, Colbia has has control of the Shell station, but the Sunoco station is, I guess, in all practical purposes, would have been a competitor. Typically, gas station competitors don't get along all that well. So getting this tied together just in this preliminary form to have the opportunity to remove the fueling system from the Sunoco in addition to the Shell station to create this new facility is just beyond unique. And I think as as Attorney Singer had previously told you, that is what makes, it's sort of the linchpin of this project. We are removing, or this project would propose to remove 7 gasoline, diesel, fuel storage tanks, 3 smaller ancillary tanks, 2 fuel oil, 1 waste oil tank from the APD. These tanks are installed in 1970, 1986, 1988, depending on the facility, different generations. They're some tanks are double walled, some tanks are single walled. They're an older technology. They use either single wall or double wall lines, and they connect to dispensers and tanks with sumps that are single walled. And what we're proposing is basically what's considered the top of the line for petroleum storage, which are double wall tanks manufactured by Containment Solutions. They're filled with brine. They're fully electronically censored. There's sensors on the inside of the tank, in the brine interstitial area. There's sensors at the top of the tank. There's sensors at the dispensers. It's all electronic, and it all communicates directly by email and text message, and I'm the gentleman who gets them all. So they're live monitored. They additionally go to our third-party compliance consultant who does all of our tank compliance testing, and also to our maintenance department. So there's a triple redundancy in notifications and monitoring. And that's not something that exists in the existing two facilities. And I think the biggest point, that I would like to make in terms of the protection of the district is, in the absence of this proposed development, nothing really changes. The Sunoco station stays the Sunoco station. The Shell station stays the Shell station. And this is our opportunity, I think, and this is what's the benefit to the town, is the opportunity to take this unique circumstance and actually improve the aquifer. Right now, the state of Massachusetts does not have anything on the books to prompt the removal of single-wall tanks, fiberglass tanks. There's not something under consideration to require double-wall sumps. These are all things that we're looking to improve by doing this project. Double-wall piping. The piping is actually a polyethylene piping that is flexible, so there aren't joints and connections as it goes from the tank to the dispenser. Where it connects into the sumps on either side, those are welded in, and those welds are actually certified and barcoded and barcoded and logged. It's a significant process. So what we're proposing here from the Aquifer Protection is I think, a significant improvement. It's not just sort of the removal of 16,000 gallons of fuel from the aquifer. It's also the removal of all of these little widgets and parts and connections and joints that exist on the old sites. And those are frankly the things that tend to go over time. And replacing that with something that's just significantly better. And that's basically, I think, the thrust of the argument on why this is an improvement. I think, in terms of the variance for fuel storage, if you look at it as a single parcel, obviously it's non-compliant. If you look at it as a whole, this is something that's significant to improve the potential protection of the aquifer and reduce the risk. That's about the sum of it. I don't want to basically repeat what Mr. Singer said. He did a really good job explaining it to you.
Sure. Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Simpson at this point?
I have a question about the control of those 2 other stations.
Yes.
You said that the company owns the Shell station.
Yes.
What's the status of the Sunoco station?
We have, not we, but there are contracts in place. The owner of the Sunoco station has signed contracts to, negotiations between the parties, to relinquish and allow the decommissioning of that property for fuel storage and to deed restrict the property. And that is all, so it's all legally agreed to by the parties. And that's where what Mr. Simpson was mentioning is, the Shell station, it's easy. They own it. They can decide what to do. The Sunoco station it has agreed through legal contracts to do the same thing.
Okay, so this isn't all three together here, 'cause that was my understanding, is this is all three, that the petitioner owned all three.
No, they own all, they own all three, but we have legal control to do everything we're proposing to you.
No.
How about more?
Go ahead, somebody, whoever wants to
Purchase
speak.
contract, you mean?
Purchase
Not a
contracts,
Is
correct.
there a purchase contract? Or is it just?
It's not a purchase of real estate contract. It is a negotiated contract to do what we said. Yeah, so it's not, we're not buying the property, but we are buying the rights to do what we've said would be
You're
done.
buying the rights to decommission the fuel sales.
Correct, and to deed restrict the property. Correct. Those properties would continue, that property, let's talk about the Sunoco specifically, the owner would continue to own it, and the owner could come before you to redevelop that property for whatever would be
He
allowed.
continued to have 35 cars when he's only supposed to have 8.
I'm not going down that road.
Well, I'm going to go down that road right now, because that was one of my concerns, is that you're eliminating the storage and sale of gasoline at those two sites.
Yes.
But you're not removing the automotive businesses that are there.
Correct.
In the Aquifer Protection District.
Correct.
And we're
At this point in time, that is correct. The automotive service businesses that are at both properties for now, and I can't speak to the future, I'm pretty confident they wouldn't be there forever probably, but no, we're not proposing to, and we said that in the documents, we were not proposing to eliminate those. We're eliminating the fuel service components, which are the ones that are the most environmentally sensitive.
Well, yeah, but you have to have a little historical lesson from this board's perspective.
Okay.
When we've denied petitioners the right to have services in the Aquifer Protection District as innocent as a car detailing place where they'd be washing cars.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, to continue on with the automobile servicing at both of those sites is a little bit of a win, yeah, but it's not what I think I was hoping we might be able to negotiate, but it doesn't sound like we can for the Sunoco station.
I cannot, I can tell you has not been part of what was negotiated to now.
Can I chime in?
You're the chair.
Okay. No, I don't care whether I'm the chair or not. We're all equal on this board, believe me. I only got a titular title, okay?
All right. You should go with it, though.
What I'm hearing is that we're getting this incredible protection to our APD, which is already built into our law. I mean, the owners of these two existing stations are required by law to ensure the integrity of the tanks that exist there.
That's true.
So we're not improving the APD by any stretch of the imagination, other than perhaps by new technology, which will have to come into place at the existing stations when that becomes antiquated anyway. Am I right on that?
I would argue basically that what this proposal is offering is actually a risk reduction.
I'm not suggesting it's a bad project. Please
No,
don't
I understand.
I think the project is fundamentally, conceptually wonderful. I'm just trying to make sure that we're not misguiding anybody's thought processes here to suggest that somehow this is a great enhancement to the APD.
I think what we're trying to say is by removing a lot of very old equipment out of the ground, this project reduces the risk for something to happen next year, in 2 years, in 5 years, at one of these two older facilities.
Okay, so at the existing Shell station, is that intended to continue to have car servicing there?
For now, yes.
And for now, yes. Okay. So aren't there going to be lubricants and APD concerns there as well?
But nothing that's not there today.
Okay, and there's no intended, certainly, car servicing at this new location, whether it be washing.
At the new site?
Yeah.
No, there's no car wash.
So
It's
in
just a
that
straight
sense,
retail
we're not
business.
increasing.
Correct. And would submit that, in how I've been characterizing it in my mind, that the risk reduction portion of the proposal I see as an improvement to the APD. And there may, not everyone may agree with how we're discussing it, but I think when you look at everything together, and that risk reduction and the elimination of
Thousands of gallons.
thousands of
potential
gallons,
spoil.
everything is an improvement. Because it's not like there is an active environmental issue right now with either property in the APD. So it's not like we're remedying anything because there's nothing to remedy. What this does is it will help prevent an upgrade over those existing conditions.
Are we in agreement that in order for this plan to work, deed restrictions will need to go on the Sunoco site location?
Both locations, and they've already been written drafts and submitted to the Board of Health.
Well, that's all fine. I'm not
but
really.
yes.
Board of Health's going to take care of itself.
Yeah.
But with respect to this board's concerns, because Mr. Neitz and I are on the exact same page on this one.
Wow.
And why I say that to you is because we both sat on the on the change of this use at that Sunoco location,
Okay.
and are extraordinarily disappointed to see what it has become.
Okay.
Okay? When we sat here and in good faith and goodwill and with restrictions, granted approval for that site location's use,
Okay.
to now be sitting here saying, oh, well, we're going to remove the tanks. Well, the tanks aren't a big deal anyway.
They don't even sell any gas.
The tanks aren't a big deal there anyway. Besides, they're under law to maintain them. So, you know.
I appreciate what you're saying.
Is the owner of that property prepared to get additional deed restrictions beyond merely the removal of the tanks?
We're here to seek
'Cause I
your
have a
questions and
feeling they're
comments. I
coming.
can't answer that tonight, clearly.
I truly have a feeling they're coming, so.
And that goes to sale of automobiles, it goes to car washing,
Everything
it
it's
goes to
become.
maintenance, it comes to everything on that property. And
Mr. Chairman, let me just add that, coming off the highway on Exit 8, going down Station Avenue, along with what you gentlemen suggested, that is a gateway to our community.
Yeah.
And it's a poor-looking gateway at the moment.
Yeah, right there it sure is.
Well, and if I could respond, Mr. Chair, for two of the comments we just heard, we would respectfully suggest that what we're proposing will, both with the property in question now and with the other two properties in the future, will result in a significant improvement to that gateway. And then as far as the comment about the Sunoco property, what I would suggest for your consideration as we move along is that any step in the right direction from your point of view is a positive step. It may not be as far as you want to go, but if it's starting down the right path, that generally, when a rock starts rolling down the hill, it picks up speed and usually keeps going. So, I ask you to consider that as
Any frustration
well.
expressed is certainly not to your
Oh, no,
petitioner,
appreciate
who has run a good Shell station over there, has tried to be a good neighbor, and has presented with a plan that, at least on an overview of that, forgetting the nuances of it, is an attractive project. But it doesn't alleviate all of our concerns.
Understood.
Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Simpson, on you, as a geologist, you talk a good story about the rest of the project, but a little bit more about the ground and the groundwater issues concerning the APD. I only see 2 test holes that are in the plans, although there are at least 3 or 4 others on the site. Your comments about what you found in the test borings.
Certainly. Basically, on the proposed property, it's a fairly consistent geology that we see across this portion of the Cape, which is a thin layer of organic topsoil, and then it's a very well sorted medium to fine sand. All the test pits that I was present for went down 12, 15 feet. The water table was actually investigated by a previous potential developer of this property, and they actually left a monitoring well on the property. Groundwater is about 35 feet in this location, but the top 15 feet is pretty well sorted, evenly graded, fine to medium sand, brown. It's very consistent with most of this portion of Cape Cod.
Where is that monitoring well? Is it on your site?
It is. It was installed by a previous, I guess, potential developers right about there.
And the test results supplied to the town from the monitoring?
We did not put that in.
Is that close to SW1?
I'm not familiar with SW1.
Well, it shows one of the borings, one of the test holes.
Oh, it was cold, I have to look.
It's on the line of the dispensers.
Interesting, they did a test.
Close to the front. We have a bioretention area. Al McCallie, Engineering. It's close to one of our bioretention areas on the front left corner of the lot.
So in this general area?
Yes.
Yeah.
Answer your question, Mr. Barron.
That's where the bioretention.
It was actually something that I just found when I walked out there. I tripped on it.
Huh. Probably nobody else knows it's there.
Convenient.
It was,
A lot of stuff in this.
okay.
Shows the importance of site walks.
So it was one of those, oh, look at that.
So it doesn't have anything to do with that, in the back where that concrete pad is, where the barbed wire and razor wire is all around it, that's the Today Real Estate site?
That's,
Part of it,
Well, there was some encroachment there.
there's some encroachment, but
Yeah.
that's back on the Today Real Estate
Okay.
piece, part of it, yes.
Do you know what the purpose of that, the wire and the pad were?
I do not.
I believe
do
Mr.
not
Neitz,
either.
that was for snow equipment.
Really?
Yes, they used to house some snow equipment there.
The bioretention areas, you feel that there's sufficient percolation at each of the sites that are shown here?
I'm not an engineer in that regard,
We
so I
could
would.
have Mr. McCallie come back up for that
All right.
question
Yeah,
if you'd
fine.
like.
Fine.
You can bring up the third chair, let's do that. Slide over. Yeah.
And a related question to it is, do you intend to have those two bioretention sites vegetated? And what sort of vegetation are you thinking of?
Al McCallie, Engineering. We've included a vegetation plan in the plan set for those bioretention areas. That includes all the landscaping that we're proposing. Both retention areas in the entire site were designed to handle the 100-year storm. We had a perk rate of less than 2 minutes per inch. So we've provided 2 bioretention areas and 2 subsurface infiltration systems with Caltech units to provide infiltration into the ground.
Okay. Part of my concern about the bioretention and the vegetation is I've seen that the Mass DOT has had bioretention areas along some of the highways, interstate highways, and they've allowed them to be overgrown and with no maintenance of that growth. And so the volume and the viability of these retention areas is diminished over time because there's no maintenance.
Understood.
And that is a concern that I would have.
And we have a significant operation and maintenance plan, which will be going back to those basins periodically to clean them out, and if necessary by hand, but maintaining the proper volume so the stormwater is handled correctly.
I noticed that certain areas have been designated for snow retention. Would both of those retention areas double as that as well?
Well, they'll handle the stormwater runoff that lands on top of them, but they're not designed to handle additional runoff.
They wouldn't be plowed in from the rest of the lot.
The snow removal areas would be plowed in, would be, yes.
But not the retention area.
But not the retention areas, that's correct.
Interesting. Okay. I might have further, but at the moment, I yield.
Okay, I don't know that we were going in any order, but since you're here, why don't you tell us what you want to tell us?
Oh, I just came up to say hi, and you were so nice to everybody else. I thought I might get some of that, but, I'll be happy to talk about the site plan or the stormwater
Friends and
management.
influence people, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. You had me feeling pretty good back there, so.
Yeah, to that point, Mr. Chair, would the board like a little bit more of a discussion about the site plan itself?
Yeah, I think that probably makes some sense
Okay.
here.
Yep, there you go.
Okay. Again, Al McCallie, AUB Engineering. You guys know the lot. It's made up of 3 pieces of land. We talked about that. We'll start out front. We have Station Ave. This is the driveway that's been proposed directly opposite the Stop and Shop Plaza. This is the so this is an existing curb cut. There's actually a curb cut shown in the curbing in the street, and this would be a new driveway, both of them 30 feet. The underground storage tanks, 2 20,000-gallon double-wall fiberglass tanks located right here. The idea is that the truck will come in through this driveway. The reason we need 30 feet instead of 24 feet, which is what the town allows, is just for the truck to make that entrance into the site, position themselves over the tanks, and then they would exit this driveway and then go back to the highway.
Are you talking about the driveways 30 feet wide?
Yes, the bylaw calls for a 24-foot max. We're asking for 30.
And the other driveway 30?
Both 30, and that request is to handle the large truck, the delivery truck that has to get through the site.
Okay.
We're then proposing an overhead canopy with 6 multi-product dispensers, each one of these being a new dispenser, 12 fueling positions. Each position would sell gasoline as well as diesel product. Just getting back to the tanks, we have a 20,000 regular, and then we have a split tank, which is super grade and diesel in that one tank. And then we will blend for the middle grade at the pumps, which is standard. We've been working with Colbert for about 25, 30 years, and we've built, right now, we're probably building a 25th season market in the area. So these layouts tend to look the same, providing the same circulation and safety precautions that we want on these sites. So you move in from the canopy and islands. We've provided additional space between the dispensers so that there's good circulation in and out of the pumps. We love the dive island layout. This is dive when everybody faces the building, because you can see all the open fueling positions that are available to you, versus when islands are parallel to the street. It's really tough to get to that second dispenser when the first one is taken. So this layout provides great circulation, gets everybody off the street, onto the site. You can pick your pump, and then we have parking in front of the building. I can't see that far now, but I think that's 13 spaces and 7 spaces on the side. And then it's a 40 by 90, 3,600 square foot Seasons Corner Market with a drive-through window located approximately here. Circulation to the drive-through is along this side of the building. We have 8-car queue to this point. We've requested a variance because it has to be 10. You know, we looked at this a couple different ways. We don't feel that we're going to need 10 cars queue on this because, one, we have the parking at the pumps where people will come in and buy from the pumps. We also have 8 cars, and when it gets to be too much beyond that, people aren't going to wait around for that.
Well, you haven't been to the Dunkin' Donuts just down the street from you, have you?
No, well,
One up on Route
well,
28.
honestly, I don't drink coffee, so don't tell Colby that, so I don't really
Right
typically
by 'em,
go. But either way, we have the distance. The bylaw says that we can't have the 10-car queue interfere with the parking spaces right here at the corner. We think those are pretty good parking spaces for the business. We could use them for employee. If we did, in fact, get the 9th and 10th car, we still think there's plenty of room on site so that it's not impacting anything near the street. And one of the things that this site provides, which I really love, is you have additional space here where cars could theoretically queue on site, another 4 or 5 cars, so that Dunkin' problem that you're having wouldn't occur here. But you also have extensive stacking leaving the drive-through. So, I mean, on both ends of this drive-through operation, we have additional space where any type of congestion or circulation problems are going to take place on our site. They're not going to carry over and end up out on the street where nobody wants that. So we also have a bypass lane that goes around the entire development. That would be for fire truck access if they wanted to get their truck around the back of the building. We've run radiuses, and that works out fine. Some additional parking to the back, which again, we would also consider that for employee. A trash enclosure to the right rear corner. We've beefed up some landscaping around this with a double row of arborvitaes based on some comments we received from the from one of the abutters. So we've done some additional landscaping there. Will also be screened, chain link fence with slats. So we're going to have good screening around that as well. Quickly, we've got a bioretention area here, which we're going to maintain, and if I can say anything about Colbia, they do an unbelievable job at taking care of their sites and being there, being available. I work with a lot of the major oil companies. You have a problem, you call in, it goes to Houston, you never see it again. This is Colbia, they're out of Cranston, Rhode Island. You know, you get Andy on the phone, you'd have a problem with this site, you're going to get an answer that day. You're not going to get a runaround, and that's based on my 25 years of experience working with a variety of oil companies. So bioretention, subsurface infiltration, and subsurface infiltration. We're collecting the tank mat, which is a loophole for a gas station, which is basically just has potential for higher pollutant load. We're collecting that stormwater runoff that lands on the tank mat. We're running it through an oil water separator, deep sump-hooded catch basins, all before we get it into the infiltration system, which also has its own filtering mechanism on the infiltrator row. And they're all under a maintenance program as well. We're going to get water from the street, and there's going to be a new septic system designed by Don. I thought it was Dan. Don. So septic system, you guys are confusing me now. So there's a septic system going in the back. Yeah, I know.
We're going to live it down.
Yeah.
Don owes you love.
Well, I'm easily confused, you know, so. But that's a quick overview of the specifics of the site. We think it's a great project.
Question on the exiting after the, that
Yes.
exit side over there. How wide is that driveway over there?
This driveway is 30 feet as well as this one, and
You
that's,
come off the drive-through when you leave there.
15.
Right there. How wide is that right there?
15.
Where did you see that?
You have to use your microscope.
is there a dimension right
Yeah,
here?
right on the plan.
Do you have a working set of blueprints that I have all the dimensions of everything? Because the plan that you gave us has absolutely no numbers on it.
Well, that's the landscaping plan.
Okay, do you have one that shows?
Yeah, if you go to the plan 2 before that, go to C1. Yeah, we try not to put too many dimensions on the landscaping plan because it's already just it's a mess with all the symbols and call-outs.
It says 15 feet on this sheet that you provided.
That side of the development, we've got a 33-foot setback to the building. We've got 15 feet.
No, I just see that.
It's
Well, let me stop you while we're right on this sheet, okay?
this one,
Absolutely.
Sean.
You've got a 30-foot,
Easy on that.
I just heard a 30-foot in drive and a 35 out drive.
No,
That's
no.
not accurate.
No, both driveways,
In and out.
Right.
both yeah.
Burger place, in and out. So we can expect traffic is going to come in and out.
Both driveways, yes.
So could you just envision January 2015, you've got 85 inches of snow, you've got the fuel truck out front, you get the dumpster in the back going on, you get cars all stacked. How does that look like? How does that look to you?
Again, something that not a lot of companies do, but Colbia is very, very diligent about having proper circulation on site and safety and visibility. So if there's a snow problem on site, they're going to come and they're going to take the snow away. They're not going to leave it. They're not going to try to pile it up, squeeze it in. You know, maybe we can get a little here. They're going to take the snow off the property and open it up so that it's clear. The visibility is clear. It's safety. Yeah, I mean, so they have that same kind of policy, I'll call it, for all their sites. Because the snow is so hard to predict. We do snow storage areas, but you know, I'd make the whole site snow storage at that point. But they're diligent in watching their sites, and if there's a problem site, anything that would affect that operation or circulation or safety, they're on site and they're removing that snow and they're taking care of it.
So
Pile of snow takes away customers.
It really does. You know, it's
So when the tanker is fueling the tanks in the ground, refueling the tanks, are those vehicles still able to get to the pumps?
when the tank is dropping right here, we're not going to have access here, but we'll cone this off. So, but you will be able to access these fueling positions with the tanker.
And how long does it take to dispense the fuel from the truck?
From the truck, 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's a routine that, you know, they're very good at getting product delivered, so.
Well, what we see here sometimes is, you know, most of our citizens are a little mature in age.
Understood.
65%.
Right.
And they get a little skittish. They have to stop before they enter a parking lot if there's commotion going on, so that backs up everything.
Understood.
Right, so, you know, I'm envisioning some people just freezing at the entrance when they see a tanker truck there.
Right.
And maybe another truck there, which then would impede the traffic coming down Station Avenue.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
And we're not trying to get the tanker there during the peak time where there's, you know, the place is going crazy or something. Well, you know, an off-peak time, if we can do it, sometimes you just need gas because we're running out.
Right.
So.
Is that something that can be managed by what you've just said?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we do our best to try to have the minimal impact by the delivery on site. But again, we can't guarantee that because we may run out one day and we got to just get the gas in. You know,
Things happen.
Could be bad weather, and it could be, you know, emergency vehicles want to get their gas. We want to be there to supply them.
Yeah, when there's a big winter storm forecasting, you can expect no bread and no gas.
Right, exactly right. So we load up on the
It
gas.
does happen, and, you know,
Understood.
6 months out of the year, we're pretty much in, you know, we're up to Mother Nature's
Right.
demands.
In around here,
Right,
for
exactly.
sure.
Did anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, that green that you're showing right there on the plan,
Yes.
is that all
It's
grass
all,
right there?
it's all green or grass or you know, again, we've got the retention basins, you got the septic system over here, but all that's shown green is landscaping of some kind.
Well,
If you look at the
So it will
landscape,
not
plan,
be
there's a lot of
left
trees.
at,
It's
in
not
its
all grass
currently
as well.
natural state?
Well, what we're trying to do is along the front, and there's a requirement in here, we're trying to maintain as many of the 4-inch trees as we can.
Oh,
There's-
sure, no, I'm talking about more of the scrub stuff.
Yeah, some of the scrub is going to be removed because we got to build the driveways, and you know, there's some area in here where there's a guy wire, so we're not proposing anything. But we're going to try to
talking
maintain
site-wide.
as much of that existing as we can. Again, a lot of it isn't great, but we're
tell me what you see to be lawns. I want to know what's lawns on
Yeah.
that plan right there.
let me just, if I could.
We'll pull up the landscape plan. 'cause
If you
I
go
can-
down-
I've got
sheet.
that right here.
Yeah, it's
I
first
see
sheet
some
in.
almond seed
It's
in a
mainly,
couple of spots.
mainly in the
where
right
it's-
area there where it's,
Grass area
This
is
is
noted
the
on the
septic.
front, northerly.
It's not all going to be
Corner.
grass. That's just designating where all the landscaping vegetation will be.
What does the expression overgrown area mean, please?
Overgrown area, there's probably, you know, a bunch of trees and stuff that's overgrown, bushes.
No.
Right up to the front?
I'm not really sure where you're talking.
Well, I'm looking on your landscape plan.
I understand.
To the north, to the east would be in the very easterly corner on Station Avenue. There's a long line of what's referred to as overgrown area. Just wondering what it is. That's that scrub stuff that I was talking about. a
Yeah,
minute ago.
that's the
Is that
existing-
intended to be just in its natural state the way it is today?
Yes. Where we can leave that in their existing conditions, we are going to.
that's the existing plan, not the proposed plan, landscape plan. The proposed landscape
Geez,
plan is,
I apologize to you. You're right, I was not looking at
L1
them.
is what we're looking at.
Okay, so you can see by the landscaping plan.
I see a couple of spots, I'm just curious as to how much greenery I'm gonna see here. When I say greenery, it means lawns, not a bunch of plants and a bunch of mulch.
Right, so
Where are we,
you're going to see that here,
yeah,
you're going to see that here,
yeah,
and then you're not going to see it in these detention basins because we're going to have, you know, certain plantings specifically to the bioretention areas. And, you know, other than that, you're going to see plantings of some kind. There's hundreds and hundreds of plantings that we're proposing on the site.
okay. Well, we can talk about that, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think we tried to come up with a plan that was satisfactory to both design review and.
Lawns look very nice, a lot of green,
We should hear from the public.
So, wait, Sean, you're saying you like lawns?
I like them.
He
Okay.
likes lawns, I like trees.
I was gonna say, that is,
Can you guys let us
an
know?
opinion. I don't
Yeah,
hear that
he's the
often from
tree
board
guy.
members.
Good luck,
We
Andrew.
keep the landscapers in business.
Okay, so we've been very aggressive in trying to provide plantings of variety of kinds, and we didn't try to minimize grass area, but that gets to be a little bit of a maintenance issue too, because we got to get out there and mow the lawn, and where we have plantings, we don't have to do, and not that we're adverse to that, just, we were trying to be heavy on the landscaping, because that's what we thought you'd
We're
want.
not going to approve AstroTurf, okay?
No, we're not going to propose it.
Oh,
Too expensive.
Grass.
We'll talk.
Mow the lawn.
We
Come mow my lawn, will you? Okay,
I
guys,
guess-
anybody
I got
else
some-
questions? of
Yeah, I
the-
have some questions, which may be better directed to any number of the parties out there.
That's fine.
And I certainly understand the benefits of the closing of the two stations and adding new protection systems on a new station, and certainly there's some good things about that, and I certainly understand how that works. The closing of the other two stations, I have some of the same concerns that were already mentioned. I think one way or another that some improvement should be made to those stations as well. Not only the fact that they shouldn't be servicing cars and so forth, but that there be some upgrades to those sites relevant to their landscaping and buffers to come more in conformity if they weren't just plain being sold and redeveloped as something else. I think that's should be part of this whole proposal one way or another, that we shouldn't just be building a new station, potentially closing two other stations and letting them sit with for sale signs or whatever the case might be. I guess you were talking about buying land from the town for the recharge calculations, and so that would be a case of actually buying land that's owned by the town, and then you're saying that would be money to the town, and then the land would be perpetually preserved as open space?
Yes, that, under the town's land disposition policy, which is it's a new policy, so we're working with the Selectman's office. It's just getting
So it's
rolling.
land that probably would have been kept green one way or another anyways. You're going to buy it, it'll stay green, and the town gets some money in essence.
Correct.
Okay, which is,
The town has a
isn't a bad
policy
thing.
now of trying to use or do something with a lot of this land that it owns. This would be buying it, money to the town, as you said, and then at least the land that's purchased, up to about 50,000 square feet would remain open space.
Good. I know in your own packet when I was reading that Seasons, one of their requirements was that they be at a signalized site, and this, needless to say, is not, and there is no plan for such. I know some people may not like the idea that I might suggest that signalization be looked at here. I know there are two others, and we don't like them too close, and there's already a traffic issue. But I think what you're going to find when your accident calculations come in for this site, they are going to be bad. I see accidents there all the time. My wife got in one. The 3-lane road with the chicken lane in the middle, and the exit from Stop and Shop is a nightmare. And I'm just afraid the way this is set up right now, it's going to be an even worse nightmare unless there was additional signalization. Signalization would help you. The second curb cut, as far as I'm concerned, should just be a one-way curb cut or not at all, and let people circulate within the system and come out at the light. That would be great for you in terms of people getting in and out. It would be great for Stop and Shop. Maybe they contribute. Maybe they wouldn't, of course. But especially considering that was in your own guidelines for what you like to see for the season stations, that they'd be at a signal, this certainly would seem to be a location that should bear some consideration, especially because it is a nightmare. I see people speeding down that middle lane. I see people kind of trying to pull out and pull into that lane until they can merge with the other lane. It's a very, very bad traffic situation. I think your traffic calculations and accident calculations are going to show some pretty bad stuff here.
We will certainly have VHB look at that. I'm one of those, I live a couple miles from the area. I actually have a different opinion. I actually
Well,
like
my
the
wife
center
got in an
lane.
accident at that
I
exact
appreciate
spot.
that, and I appreciate that. But we will look at that.
Yeah,
So we appreciate the feedback, and we'll have VHB look at that.
Okay. The buffers, and this is something that's happened in a couple cases lately, is the bio-retention trenches and pits. Personally, I think those should be outside of the 10-foot buffer zone that's supposed to be kept in a relatively natural state with the trees. With the two buffer retention pits on this site go right up to the lot line, meaning all those trees have to be cleared out. Now, maybe you could plant some things. It shows a few things being planted on the slope of the new bioretention site, but I don't think that's really the intent of the bylaw. The bylaw has buffers that are supposed to be buffers that are supposed to be maintained as much as possible with existing vegetation and not bioretention contours. So, in terms of design review, I wasn't able to be at the design review meeting, unfortunately. I did write a letter with some of my concerns. Apparently, the other members didn't necessarily agree with me. I know Kathy Williams supplied you with pictures of other canopies within the community and what we're trying to do to make this a more attractive community in terms of how it looks, especially with the fact that this building is going to be within the setback in the front, that it should look as nice as possible. To me, that does not mean a flat roof with a bright yellow line and shell signage on it. I think it should be a pitched canopy with cedar shingles and look like so many of the others, like Cape Farms and different ones that have gone out of their way to work with the town to make a better looking facility. The building itself, I don't have a problem with the way it looks. I think it looks attractive enough. But the canopy, especially based on the variances that are required and necessary and looked for here, I really think that needs to be some thought and a few dollars, it's not a whole lot, be put into that to make that a more attractive building, especially considering it is in the setback, and especially considering what Tom says as far as this is the entryway to our community, and we would like any of the new construction going on to fit in as nicely as possible with our Cape Cod character, as I like to call it. Signs, we're looking for a huge relief on signage. My feeling is that I, at least personally, when it comes to that, am not going to be terribly in favor of much, if any, relief on the signs in terms of much larger signs, more signs, et cetera, et cetera. I can certainly see directional signs and that type of thing. That's fine. But I just giving you a little forethought in terms of my own impression that Mobile up the street, they do a great job. They are conforming to all the signage requirements, and I can't see them having to conform, and they were just before us for some other potential relief, which they did not get. I can't see suddenly giving it to you guys in a big way when they're told they can't have it. In-lot trees, you're showing 0 in-lot trees. You've got way more parking spaces than you need by requirements in terms of what's required. The in-lot trees, which I think are, I can't remember how many should be required, but they should be there. There's a spot as you come out of the lane from the drive-through that's just crosshatched, no problem. You know, they just could put one there, but you've got plenty of extra parking spaces. There's a lot of pavement there. There's a lot of pumps and roofage and building. It needs to be tempered as much as possible with more greenery, and that is, again, at least in my circumstance, a very easy thing for you to do and something that I would not be too intent on giving relief for. The photometric lighting, apparently you're looking for more lighting than might be normal there, and I would suggest that be looked at in terms of keeping the lighting within the requirements of the town. Has there been any thought given to bike access from the bike trail? I think that would be a nice thing for you.
We do too, and it's happening.
Okay.
We looked into it, actually, had it designed. If you've walked the bike trail, if you've gone over the bridge.
I know there's quite a long.
There's a lot, you'll see railroad tracks there.
Yeah.
The state, when they gave up rights over certain parts of the railroad, they did not give up those rights. So they gave up here where the trail is. This right here where those tracks are, it's all state control. And they won't allow it. And the bridge abutment, if you look at it, comes back to here. So the way it was designed and with that.
I thought so, yeah.
Yeah, we'd love to do it, but can't be
good
done.
for you, yeah. So those are, some questions and some comments and some concerns that I will have when the other meeting come. I mean, you're looking for, as you say, an awful lot of variances here, and so there needs to be as much give and take as you can give us to make this a much better proposal, both for not only the aquifer, which is extremely important, and this is a good thing for getting rid of the other gas station tanks and so forth, but also in terms of the visuals here and the traffic considerations and just making this a better proposal, which I think it can be. And if you put more of some of those thoughts that I just gave into it and some of the thoughts that the other members are giving, I think you can have a better proposal here that is more likely to be accepted.
And we can certainly do that. And if I could just address one point quickly before we go to Mr. Neitz on the lighting. It's my recollection, the question of the lighting was only some of it that was under the canopy for safety reasons, and we'll give you more information on that.
Did you have something you wanted to?
I do. I visited the South Dennis facility this morning and was very impressed. I wasn't expecting to be as impressed as I was, to be honest. Looks very nice. It's very well kept and very well run inside, too, and very clean. And I was just very pleased to see how good it looked. I guess I have some concern about the traffic study. And I don't understand, and I'm not a traffic engineer by any stretch of the imagination, I don't understand the seasonal factor involved with the study. The study was done in January 3rd and the 5th, which is not a really busy time around South Yarmouth. And and, you know, there was 0 bicycles, and I think we might have a few more bicycles with the trailhead across the street. There's real concern about that. There's no motorcycles, of course, around in January either. So those are all issues that I think, I don't know how they alter or adjust those seasonal traffic
There are
studies.
adjustments, and we can give you some simple or beginning answers tonight and more answers
Well, I
at the
saw,
next meeting.
adjustments for, adjustment factors for Cape Cod that the state does, but they haven't done that since 2011, so.
Before calling somebody up on traffic, let's just table traffic to next week when we're here. I think Dick is just talking about his concerns.
Yeah, I don't think we need all the answers tonight.
I don't think we
but
need
those
two
are-
presentations
Those are some
on
concerns.
traffic.
And related to the traffic issue, and I think it might be the elephant in the room for a few of us, is the drive-in, the drive-through. And whether that's an integral part of this proposal.
Yep.
Because I have concerns about relief for the backup in the drive-through. The Dunkin' Donuts on Station Avenue can be a nightmare with 20 cars waiting to get through.
Yep.
And we've all seen it, and it doesn't conform with the traffic study. And, I'd hate to think of traffic going out onto Station Avenue from this facility at that point in particular, with all the other things going on there and a turning lane in the middle and the whole thing that incurs there. So that's a real concern of mine. And I don't know whether that's something that you can give us some more information. But I also was thinking about the seasonality of the traffic flow in January 3rd versus July 4th weekend, or, those types of things. So, particularly Saturday mornings, you wouldn't think, but Saturday morning's probably one of the busiest times on that road. And it's backed up. Sometimes, right now, it can back up from the traffic lights in front of the bank back almost to the high school sometimes in the summertime. So these are issues that need to be addressed that I have a real deep concern for.
Thank you.
If I could just chime in a little bit, and I agree with what both of them said. And I had a question about the co-branding. Do you have, who's the co-brand?
That has not been finally determined. It'll be one of the usual suspects, but it has not
Oh, it's going to
been
be
finalized.
Honeydew, it's going to be Dunkin'?
Donuts.
Those types of businesses. About, you just don't know.
Well, I'd kind of like to know. I mean, it could make a big difference.
Get the boss up here.
Yeah.
You didn't like my answer, huh?
We still really haven't even negotiated a contract with anybody. I will tell you, primary growth that we've had lately has been probably 75% with Mary Lou's and 25% with Dunkin' Donuts. Mary Lou's has really had a great experience with us, and really we're the only ones that they'll seem to grow with to go in our locations. There is a Dunkin' Donuts down the road. Don't know if they would want to go in here. We're pretty well versed with the Mary Lou's. I think we have about 14 of their locations in our facilities right now. Being the Cape, it'd probably be something that they would really want, and I'd probably be more willing to give it to them. So I know you have said that the Dunkin' does back up. I would think that having another facility with a drive-through, and I heard your question, is it an intricate part? For us, it sometimes really decides whether a project makes sense
You
or
don't want to
not.
preclude a customer buying $40 or $50 worth of gas for a guy that's spending $2 for a cup of coffee either.
Well, sometimes we make more money on the $2 cup of coffee than the 40 gallons of gas. So, but it is an intricate part, and I think that by putting another facility on the other side of the road, it'll eliminate potentially some of the traffic that you do have going into that Dunkin' Donuts, and potentially some of that crossing over of that center lane to have to cross over to get to Dunkin' Donuts, because now you have an offering on both sides of the roads that might benefit the town overall. So.
Okay. So, all right, so we'll figure one of the.
Nothing's been signed, nothing's even been discussed with any co-brander yet. I think it's a little premature for us.
We'll just consider then, a default, either Dunkin' or
Yeah.
Mary Lou or one of them. Okay.
And if you think of Mary Lou's, I don't think I've ever seen one that really has too long of a line stacking now, but unfortunately, we have to go with what the traffic study requires us to have on our sites.
I don't think your customers are going to be thinking about a traffic study in the
Right.
middle of July.
No,
when they
I
look for
agree.
a cup of coffee.
Shouldn't be
You
drinking
have
a
the
cup
lighting.
of coffee in the middle of
Now,
July.
the other stations, you own the Shell station.
I own
is
the
that
Shell
correct?
station,
So
yeah.
you have complete control of that? Because I think one of the concerns I have is, when I envision this all done and I drive by Sunoco and I drive by Shell, they're gonna look like Sunoco and Shell stations to me.
No, they
It's not
won't.
like we're eliminating, how will they look differently?
Well, the Shell station, like I said, talking about the Sunoco, we only have the right to remove the tanks. Once the tanks are removed, I'm sure the state is going to require remediation of soil and removal of any contaminations, and then deed restrict the property. We don't have rights to do anything else at that property as we speak. Now, the Shell station, once we build this location, if we're honored enough to be able to build it, it will be completely debranded. There won't be any identifications for Shell at the facility. I know we've had some discussions back and forth of potentially putting some trees along the front of it to give it a little more softer feel. I'm not in objection to doing any of that, adding some trees in the front of it. We're going to have to be ripping it up to take the tanks out, take the fuel out, take the lines out of it anyhow. So to put an island in the front to have some trees, I'm more than happy to do it. Plus, it makes my property more marketable if down the line I decide I want to sell it.
Let me stop you there, okay?
Sure.
Because there is a decommissioned service station on Route 28 in West Yarmouth that is now housing a transmission specialist location, which is a parking lot along Route 28 in West Yarmouth.
Okay.
And there's nothing that will be offered relative to deed restrictions on the Shell station that would stop that, is there? Because
No.
it's going to remain a service area.
As of right now, we're going to continue to try to keep the service there. Whether or not that is the long-term strategy, for me to
No,
keep.
but it's our long-term town.
Right.
you
No,
know.
I agree.
And if we have one location now where service can be performed by your company, and now we're opening up a new location that takes care of pumping gasoline, but we're going to have a second location that can service vehicles and end up having it look like, and you'll forgive me, whoever owns that property, but it's a disgrace that we look at piled upon pile of parked vehicles waiting to get their chance to go in the bay to have their transmission worked on. We're going to get a deed restriction that's going to stop that from happening at the Shell station?
I guess you're asking for deed restrictions against automobile servicing?
I'm looking for, I don't know how to suggest it to you. I know I don't want that to develop.
The whole thing is everything, when we develop all these plans, is really based on economics, and there's a certain, I've heard a lot of requests, and really every time I hear a request, and in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, what was the return on this project to begin with, and can I accommodate
Well,
it?
that we can't answer for
I
you.
understand.
That's an internal
But
debate you have
as
to
far
make.
as the property right now, I think the highest and best use of that probably isn't a service bay. Would I want to restrict it at this point? Probably not, if I can avoid it, for the simple reason it makes it more marketable to me to be able to sell it. You see the way that the site is being run right now. I don't think that.
But like you say, you want to sell it. You would like to
Right.
keep it marketable for your potential sale. And certainly that's what the world, that's what this country at least at present is based upon. who knows with
Right.
Green New Deals.
I mean, if the town has somebody who wants to enter the town that's been looking for a commercial piece of real estate that wants to come talk to me, and we can get this other
I
piece
think you're
done.
missing my point.
Sure.
Right now, when I drive down that road, there is a essentially undeveloped parcel that you're looking to develop, while leaving a parcel that you're now well maintaining, but can do whatever you want to do there. But now we're not enhancing this wonderful viewscape of ours by not having that open space together with a well-maintained service and gasoline filling station. Now we're going to have a well-maintained gasoline service and filling station, a gasoline filling station, but with a service station that likely is going to remain piled in front with parked cars waiting to have their brakes done.
In violation of the current APD district.
I guess at some point, there's also, and I know it's kind of a novelty because I've heard some of the people that have come up before me, there has to be a level of trust. I mean, I'm going to be across the street.
Yeah, I can't, to be honest, I
understand.
trusted the guy down at Sunoco.
I understand, and that's why I say it's hard for me to even bring it up. But the
So
last
let
thing I
me
would-
bring something up for your
Sure.
consideration when you come back. That you're going to, before I'm going to consider this swap, I need to see what's going to happen, at least at the site you do control.
Okay.
And my thought would be that maybe what you want to do is come in with more than just a simple roadside buffer, but a limitation on vehicles that can be parked on the exterior of that building that makes some commercial and aesthetic sense. And how one goes about screening that, not with stockade fences and all of that, but some sort of vegetation. I mean, it would seem to be doable to me. I just don't want to see, if you can not understand
I understand
my concern,
completely.
then please go down to Route 28 and see what I'm talking about, okay?
With
Right across from one of the
26
prettiest
years-
hotels in our town.
26 years worth of experience, unfortunately, the industry that I am in has black eyes because of exactly the facility
Not
you're
because of
talking
your
about.
business, I know that.
No, the
because I've been
industry
around
that I'm
your
in.
business.
So unfortunately, that's something that we have to deal with, and there's a negativity around it, and I really appreciate the nice comments you made about our locations. I wouldn't, we'll look into what we can do, but as a businessman who's potentially going to be across the street that is going to value what is in that surrounding area, last thing I want to do is antagonize the people of Yarmouth, South Yarmouth, that they won't patronize my location because that location I sold and now it looks terrible. That's not anything that I'm planning on doing. The concern with mine is, say if a bank wants to buy it and now I've put a restriction on the number of spots in the front, you guys might.
But you see, that's why there's zoning relief. So they can always come in and seek to even if we don't want to call it a deed restriction, we can make it a condition of one of these grants that we're looking for. Okay, that's what has to be done with that site. And then if somebody needs to alter that, they can come in and seek to either a variance if that's what's required, or a special permit if that's what is required. But that's why we have zoning.
Right.
I'm saying as a mitigating factor to the relief you're looking at broadly through these three properties is to find a way that we are not looking at the potentiality for stacked cars, 4 deep, line of 8 of them, in front of that service station, sitting there while they await the next bay to open up.
I think I understand what
So a
you're looking
bank,
for.
so a bank, to use your example,
A
wouldn't
bank
be
would be great.
concerned
Yeah,
or something.
I think I understand what you're looking for.
Mr. Chairman,
so-
I think that, if they would consider it, my initial comment was, I would like to see that existing Shell station over which they can have control now, to remove the protection from the APD, so that only an APD-approved business would be capable of going into that facility, whether it be a
That
bank,
would really
real estate
mitigate the
office, or
APD,
an
wouldn't it?
attorney's office, or
Remove the grandfathering, in other words. and
remove the grandfathering for stuff that's now prohibited in the Aquifer Protection District.
Well, that doesn't stop him, though, from what he's doing there now. He's grandfathered. So you're
No,
saying
that's
you
what
want to take
Well, I'm
away-
suggesting that grandfathering, that the
away.
petitioner agreed to eliminate that grandfathering.
As part of the grant of
Part
relief
of that
for this.
is part of the consideration for the variance for the other site.
I wrote notes.
Well,
and sell it to a bank.
I agree with that, but one of the issues that I have, and I will say that I have been to your business in South Dennis there, and it's very nice. It's a beautiful
Thank you.
spot.
Thank you.
I think this will be a beautiful spot myself. I do have my concerns about what I've heard about the drive-through and about the traffic backup and people crossing that middle lane. Those are for another discussion, but the business itself will be beautiful when it's done. And I think we can get there. But I do have an issue about just adding another gas station and not taking any really away. And when you say I'm just gonna take the gas tanks out of the Shell station and everything else stays the same, that's not really cutting it for me. So I'm gonna need to see, and when you don't have control of that other property, I guess we can call Mark, I guess he left, but he could go do an
He's here.
enforcement
He's
action.
here.
Oh, is he? Mark, could you do an enforcement action at the Sunoco station? Can you review that? I think they're only supposed to have 8 cars and they get 35 or something. On the corner of Old Town House and Station Ave. Could you take a look at that and what they're allowed to do and not allowed to do? Because
Because they got relief from this board.
yeah.
Yes, I have.
I read the last decision, and I thought they were only allowed to have 8 cars.
Well, they have 8 cars for sale, but they also have many cars, as you say, waiting. They're queuing up to go in for service, so I do check there quite often.
I mean, along Old Townhouse and in the back and everything.
Yeah, they all have plates on them, so as far as I know, they're registered vehicles waiting for service, so.
That's where our decisions get away from us.
Yeah, well, again, though, I think that there are limitations on what we allowed for vehicles to be parked back there. And in my mind, I don't remember what they were because it was so long ago we dealt with it, but they have far exceeded it consistently since almost the day we granted the relief. And I know you were on that, Dick, because we had a lot of concerns over it.
I'll
So-
certainly take a look at that.
I think I understand what you're asking for, so we'll go back and we'll review it and say, listen, can we do something here that makes the town
To be
happy?
the Shell lot.
Exactly.
The shell lot, because you
Shell lot.
obviously have control of that.
Exactly.
So
Right.
what I'd like you to do is to look at that, and
Sure.
I don't know if it's possible, but I would like to, if you're looking at that Shell station in the future, it doesn't look like a gas station. I don't know what you have to do to it. I don't know what the economics are.
Honestly, I think the building itself now really doesn't look, I mean, if you got rid of the garage doors, it probably wouldn't look like a gas station to begin with, because it's got, it's
Yeah,
got
we're not looking for you
dormers,
to
it's
raise
got
it.
everything
I'm
else
just
on the
saying,
property.
If we can dress it up.
Oh, yeah.
I think it needs a new landscape, get rid of some of that concrete in there,
Stick
and
on the table.
we've got to do something. I don't want it to turn into a parking lot either.
No, I think Dick's suggestion is the penultimate. Take away the grandfathering under the APD. I mean, that solves my concerns tremendously, because now we know we won't be servicing cars.
And it's not just for the visual effect, it's for the aquifer protection.
Yeah,
And I'll just
before
say,
we-
remember that when we talk about signs at the next meeting.
Yeah, well, thank you. I was just going to bring up
Signals.
signs. If I can,
Yin and yang.
can I bring up the signs?
I
Because
just
I've
did,
been,
so I guess you can.
I've been waiting with bated breath to get to them, and the signs are something that I'm going to tell you, particularly with recent sites very similar to this, we're not going to deviate from what we've been doing historically. Yes, Mark. I saw the hand, that always reminds me of elementary school.
I raised my
Let's
hand
have a judge
politely.
say, are you pointing at me?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Well, good evening.
I would like to remind the board that there was a town meeting this past Saturday where some of the signs that they're seeking relief for were actually approved at town meeting, including the LED signage, the gas pumper, the gas top pumpers, and also the drive-through
That's
menu
good
board.
news.
So, yeah, I know it only took a little while. Well, the planning board worked really hard on it, and I just wanted to remind you all that it was there. I have not had a chance. I've been in mind-numbing meetings all week for training, so I haven't had a chance to catch up with Andrew, but I will, so we can identify where he doesn't need relief in the future.
So then perhaps, Andrew, when you come back, if you could just
We'll revise
identify what was prohibited in the past and what the not as fully effective yet town meeting bylaw changes are, which will nullify the previous
Some of them, sure.
concerns.
Yep.
Some
Yeah,
of the
we
relief
come
you
up,
need.
we had come up with a list, just, yeah, we're happy to do that. The list that you have, I actually met with Mark, and we went over it in detail so we could make sure it was accurate, and we'll update it.
Well, timing's everything. Unfortunately, the Secretary of State has to review all bylaw changes and approve them. And
That's 90 days.
so at this moment in time, for some of the relief you have, you need, some of the signs you're looking for, you need relief. However, if our town meeting has spoken and passed changes to it to incorporate some of the things for which you need relief, I suspect that will go a long way on this board to say, hey, town meeting has spoken, subject to the, we can give you the relief because that's in conformity with what the town wants us to do.
And by the time this site is built, it'll be long after the AG has approved the changes to the.
Well, the problem is you're asking for the relief now.
No, that's what I mean, but it's almost going to be like
Why I say
conditional
timing's
relief that'll
exquisite.
disappear when it's no longer necessary.
Want to withdraw this and wait till that's approved?
No, I'm not going there.
Oh, okay.
Can we go to the public?
All right. Well, are we going to do signs tonight?
If you want to, sure.
I don't,
It's up to you.
I defer to you. Our next week's our next meeting's agenda is going to be to deal with parking. Is that,
Several
traffic?
things, traffic, all the issues we heard tonight.
Yeah, well.
And there's several other things on the agenda.
Yeah, no, that's fine, but I'm just trying to gauge it in terms of how much are we going to listen to your presentation tonight? How much more would you feel necessary to present tonight?
Oh, we've presented what we're comfortable, we're fine with our presentation. If you have more, we've heard some signed feedback from a couple of you. If there's more feedback you want to give us, we're happy to go over whatever you want. As far as our presentation, you've got it.
All right, well, on that sign, if I can just stay there for a minute, if you could do just a simple matrix showing what does require under the present and what it was no longer required to grant relief under the bylaw changes.
Sure.
Because I think that will help us tremendously to avoid the issue of having to stay completely conforming to that which we've done in the past, because now those prior applicants can come in and seek the same relief.
Okay, absolutely.
Okay, and I know many interested parties exist around the Cape looking,
For the ones that were changed at town meeting, absolutely. That's why
Yeah.
it was designed.
Okay, so, does anybody in our audience who may not be available, or even if you are available on the next meeting, June 27, June 27, right? On the June 27th meeting, if you would like to speak tonight, feel free. We'll ask those who might not be directly employed by the petitioner, but who would care to speak in favor of the petition, please come up to the microphone. Seeing none, would anybody care to speak in opposition to this petition? Please come to the microphone one by one. You're just going to need to tell us who you are.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Warren Woods. I have the medical building right next door. I'm a direct abutter to this land. And I have some concerns. The traffic that Mr. Martin talked about and the chairs talked about, Mr. DeYoung, I've experienced it as well. Turning in and out of that parking lot my parking lot is a nightmare. And the traffic, people fly down, like you said. I'm surprised we don't get hit all the time. So if we add another facility, like, and your facilities are beautiful. I have to agree. They're very nice. Thank you. However, the number of cars going in and out, especially if you have a Dunkin' Donuts, forget it. The traffic is going to be enormous going in and out, and a tremendous amount of traffic going out of there. And I think there will be backups, and I think they'll extend way down. If you Dunkin' Donuts around the Cape back up it tremendously. If you have Mary Lou's, you may not get as much. But I think that's a huge concern for me. The trash generated by Dunkin' Donuts is enormous. It's all over the place. Absolutely. I didn't hear anything about trash. And, that's a concern for me. The other thing that I didn't hear anything about is delivery of other products, not just gas. Right. You have other miscellaneous products, and I'm sure you have ways to get the products in and out. But the traffic, trucks, not just the tanker trucks, hopefully you sell a ton of gas and you have to have a lot of tanker trucks. But when those trucks come in, I'm sure they're going to have to stop, look, and then it's going to back traffic up going down the street. In my practice, I have elderly, I have young people. The medical people have a lot of elderly people around. It's a concern for me, that the flow of traffic on the road. And we see the traffic going in and out of the mobile station already, and the traffic coming in and out of Stop and Shop. And many times you see people, hesitating, struggling in the area. That's one major concern. The other major concern I have is that the applicant can just apply for so many variances for a property that is way too small for this project. It obviously needs all kinds of variances to go forward. How does that work? We're going to steamroll right over all the rules and regs in the town? I mean, what's the point? You already have a gas station. Why do you want another one? I mean, just modify the Sunoco. That's my suggestion. And I know you can't put the food service in the other station. You don't have the room. But I don't think this is appropriate for this site. And the other thing is the argument about the aquifer. And having lived on the Cape since 1957, I can tell you I appreciate an aquifer. But with 35 feet down to water, and if you're going to drop a tank, I don't know how deep the tanks are, but you're right on top of that aquifer. And I appreciate that it's the best technology, the latest and best. But if there is a spill, that goes right into the aquifer. We're already struggling to protect our aquifer. I don't see the point of adding another gas station where we already have the two, and even if you take the tanks out of Sunoco, why not, as Mr. DeYoung said, the state keeps an eye on those tanks so that they're not going to leak, and if they do leak, they have to take them out. There was an incident in Wellfleet where they had to take a tank out, and they had to shut the station down for a long period of time. I don't know if anybody knows that. My family lived on Wellfleet. But so it's great that there's new technology, but I don't see how that's going to benefit the aquifer. And you're right on top of it, 35 feet down, you're right on top of the water. So I just think, in my opinion, there are just so many reasons to deny this petition. I would suggest you find a different location, because I don't agree that should go into that location.
Well, not
That's
only
my opinion.
that Wellfleet station you're talking about
remember
cost millions and millions for
It did.
DEP to clean up with no viable party to pay for it.
I know.
So
on the
it was-
left-hand side as you go down Route 6. I know.
So it was a sore point for a lot of people, maybe not known well up here, but down there was, for everybody was upset about it.
It was a big problem.
Chairman, through you, can I ask a question?
Thank you.
Sorry?
I said, can I ask a question to the?
Yeah, I just have one
Yeah.
question for you. What are your thoughts about Mr. Martin's suggestion of potentially a traffic light there?
I think it would be helpful, but I think it might be overkill. It would, if we had that project go forward, we would definitely need something like that. Without that project going forward, I don't think we need it. I think what we do need to do is just have, something like a stop sign before Stop and Shop when they come out. I don't know if there is one, so people will slow down a little bit. It's just, they do speed. It's not a surprise to me. We've had patients get into accidents there as well. But I think we have so many stop signs there, I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chair, excuse me, sir, I have a question. You've been there for a long time,
7 years in that location.
and you were there when they did the rail trail bridge?
Yes.
And did you notice any disturbing animal problems when they dug up that area?
I did not.
Okay.
No, they're right behind my property. They actually came on my parking lot, and the state, or the contracts that they hired, were actually building it using my parking lot as a staging area for a little bit.
Yeah. There was some concerns with Wendy's and the feed place that when they were disturbing all that land, there was a lot of active rat problem. And, now that last piece of land is going to go away, where are they going to go? And maybe
Coyotes will get
maybe there should just be some, mitigation about containing those animals first.
Yeah, I haven't seen any rats. You think they're coming out of the dump, recycling center?
I'm not sure, but there's not too much undeveloped land there left. And I know that those other business owners had some problems when they did the rail trail bridge. That's all I know.
Yeah. Thank you very much for hearing
Thank
me.
you so very much, and certainly feel free to come to the next meeting, and you can be heard again if you'd like to.
Mr. Chairman.
I probably will. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
have a question?
Doctor.
I'm sorry, sir.
Just a moment. Mr. Nicanello brought up the question of the construction of the rail bridge. Something that I observed with that construction was that the road closures that had to be done and the detours that had to go around were very lengthy and extensive. How did that affect your business with the way that those road closures closed down that one small section of Station Ave.
Well, it wasn't all that significant for us because we have access from Workshop Road. So people could come into my lot from the other side. So it wasn't as significant as it could have been.
Well, what I observed was like people coming up Station Ave from the direction of DY could not get through the bridge site.
We did have a lot of slowdowns at that time.
Would have to go at least a 4-mile detour, either east or west around that site to get
Yes, we experienced that. We experienced that a bit.
Okay, but you saw no slowdown in as far as your customers?
Not
far as
from
your
my
clients.
perspective. No, they could get there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Did anyone else want to speak in opposition to the petition? If so, please come to the microphone, feel free. All right, well, keep in mind that even if you might not want to speak concerning this petition, either in favor or against it this evening, you are welcome and free to do so. We're not closing our deliberations or considerations of any aspect of this, and by continuing it to another night certainly doesn't, nor should it imply that we're in any way approving or disapproving of it. We haven't heard all the evidence yet, so we have to close it, maintaining an open mind, hoping that we hear all of the information that's going to be presented to us before we begin our deliberations on whether or not to grant any of the relief sought. So with that, if no one cares to speak either in favor once again or in opposition once again, why don't we agree to continue this petition with an extension agreement to June 27th?
Well, we're fine with it, but let me just ask, did we convince you to come on the 13th? No. All right. Told you I was going to ask.
No, I said January. Right?
He's in Tahiti.
Away, or I would be here.
All right, so June 27th.
Thank you very much for accommodating me. I appreciate it.
Now, if you're all going to be here, that's important.
We hope to be.
Well, no, now you're committed.
This is a higher authority.
Still committed.
Ain't that the truth? So if you'd come up, Mr. Singer, and sign that extension agreement. While your counsel's doing that, I want to tell you, it's not only the Dennis location I've been to, but other locations that have your mark of improvement on them, and your firm does a magnificent job. So none of this should be, please don't question any concern for the viability or success of your firm, okay?
I appreciate that.
And with that, will somebody move to adjourn? I heard that.
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Mr.
Can I
Chairman.
get a second?
Second, Mr.
We've all
Brown.
voted in favor, and that means
you
good
very
evening,
much.
gentlemen.
Good evening.
Ladies.
Happy Mother's Day.
Down that way somewhere.
Did you say that to me?
John, did you make the motion?
What?
What if we don't second?
Mr. Barron.
Tom and Tom, I think.
Mr. Barron.
Good job.